Let's freaking go. We have a lot to chat about today. Welcome to the PHL live stream. It was a little bit different because we did roughly an hour ago release a JAYDEN Daniels deep dive. Pretty excited about how that one turned out. Obviously talking about if he's actually improving after a game versus Arkansas where he struggled. And we also included the great Joe Burrow on his thoughts about LSU. Well, not LSU, but just the idea that quarterback sacks are necessarily a good or bad thing. So pretty fired up about tonight. Obviously, for me, I take a look at LSU as a whole, and I say to myself, look, you're the SEC West champions. I feel as if your fate is in your own hands. You get to determine your own destiny. All you got to do for me is win out, and you are probably going to the college football playoffs. So I am really freaking excited about what LSU could potentially do over the next couple of weeks. And look, it's not been the prettiest. It's not should have, could have, would have been the year this year that LSU was supposed to go to the college football playoff. And roughly in the next 5 or so minutes, we will know what LSU's college football playoff rating will actually be. So really excited about that. We say hi to Tony. We say hi to Jacob. We say hi to John Sibley. We say hi to another Jacob. Good to see you. We say hi to Simper. Are our receivers not running great routes and getting open, or is JD5 not getting them the ball when they are? Not bashing, just curious. So we're actually going to start off here tonight talking about JAYDEN Daniels. So obviously, over the last 24 to 48 hours, I went back and rewatched as many JAYDEN Daniels throws as I possibly can. And what was very interesting is we are on pace to set the SEC sack record. So after the end of this season, unless something changes, it's either going to be us or Kentucky. Kentucky's had a lot of issues with sacks. Now, the reason why I decided to do that deep dive is there are different variations to a quarterback getting sacked. I feel as if sacks are very relative. I feel like sacks are something that can be a little misleading. So we have a lot of data to comb through when it comes to the sacks that JAYDEN Daniels actually has. Now, the funny thing to me is when you look at quarterback sacks, oh, there you go. So I actually sent an autograph card to Ed, being a longtime PHLer that he is. And here's something very interesting for tonight. If you do buy a PHL shirt, you are getting not only a JAYDEN Daniels card, you're also getting a Keyshawn card and a Derek Stingley card as a part of your order. That's all on the house. All you got to do is follow the instructions at the bottom of the screen, and we are obviously cooking with grease. So let's continue talking about JAYDEN Daniels. Thank you so much, Ed, for your generosity. You know, right off the jump here for me, I do think JAYDEN does have an issue trusting his receivers, trusting the protection, taking his eyes off the downfield targets. I also don't like our route concepts, but I'm going to be as honest as I possibly can. This isn't necessarily a criticism. This is just a reality. We've not been able to throw slants consistently. And what was very interesting was Arkansas was giving us the intermediate stuff, the middle of the field, over the middle, and we just won't throw it. And if you go look at JAYDEN's actual passing chart versus Power 5 teams, you see, and most passing charts are like a U as far as like where your actual targets go. But what's very interesting is JAYDEN's U is a little bit more pronounced. It's a little bit thinner along the sideline. So what does that tell you? That means that he doesn't like throwing over the middle at all, and it's close to the middle. And what's very interesting is earlier this year, we did an hour-long film study on that very thing. JAYDEN not actually throwing over the middle of the field. What was really fascinating about that was the next game versus New Mexico, he actually looked like an NFL quarterback, like a traditional drop-back pocket passer. And no one's asking him to be that. But what's very interesting to Simper's question, I do feel, especially on the road this year, the routes haven't been the absolute best, especially versus Arkansas, but really versus Auburn. But I think in all the other games, the routes have been fine. I think some of the play calling could be a little bit easier. We don't do a lot of Y cross, if you will, like deep crossing routes, which I think are very effective now in the modern game. But, for the most part, it's a lot of it is on the quarterback. It is. So, for me, I think Jayden is one of the more unique and complex quarterbacks that we've honestly ever seen in college football, right? Because you guys watch the game, you guys are smart. You see the missed throws. You see the times when we take sacks when we shouldn't. You see the times when a ball can be overthrown, or when the pocket breaks down when it didn't need to. You've seen when the sacks haven't been on Jayden Daniels at all. So it's very, very, very complex. Yeah, we got. I'll send you an Odell card for sure. I'll send you his rookie card. So there you go. And I'll send you all these other ones as well, Jacob. What's up, Mr. Go Tigers? Good to see you. Good to see the PHL fam. Good to see you, Mark. Yeah. Oh, dude, I know you love Damon Clark. I remember you were stooping for him even when he was struggling. And I remember, for Damon Clark, I think it was you that was defending him pretty ardently. Simper, I might have you confused with somebody else because it is so long ago. Someone like Damon Clark and Cordell Flott last year, to have the years that those guys had, when the year before everybody thought that they were just god awful. Look, it's one of those things that you just cheer for, right? But look, to continue on with the Jayden Daniels conversation, good to see everybody starting to creep in here. That's obviously great. The simple truth is this. You've got to do a better job, obviously, as Brian Kelly mentioned, coaching LSU up, but at the same time, Jayden has got to do a better job of ripping that thing. The hats are being printed right now. I've put the large amount of money it costs to actually get all these hats printed, so they are being printed right now, and I guarantee you, when they sell out, I'm not gonna. I don't know if I'm gonna print more but I love this hat. This honestly is my favorite hat. And I'm not just saying that just to say it. The logo, the gold trim, it is a lot, though, to get them printed. Tough game coming up versus Vacuum U, actually. They put up a lot of yards. Their yard per play are pretty elite against decent teams. Great RB. Thoughts? So, yeah, we'll talk a little bit about Texas A&M. Look, let me first start off with UAB. I haven't done a whole lot of studying of UAB. I'm just going to be as honest as I possibly can. I've been more focused on, getting ready to go to Atlanta. I'm getting to go. Pretty excited about that. I'm going with the PHLer, which is also pretty cool. And we'll share a few more details on that coming up. But what's really interesting about Texas A&M is we are in the same spot as they were versus us last year. Right? Very mediocre year, not living up to expectations. They would do that. What the Preston wide receiver guy said, they want to urinate in our cereal. That is what he pretty much said. But for me, I look at Texas A&M offensive line, which should have been a strength for them, has been bad. Jimbo has been really bad. And Max, you and I, now going back to last year, we're trying to warn everyone to stay away from the Texas A&M hype. And the under 9 wins was as big of a lock as I think I've ever seen. So yeah, it's very, very interesting. Oh, you're talking about UAB? Yeah, let's talk about UAB. So this is a team that's lost, obviously, quite a few games in the middle of this season. All right. McBride, isn't that his name? Really good running back. Honestly, Max, I've not watched a second of them just yet. I've spent my entire time dropping the Jayden Daniels film study from earlier tonight. I will say this, though, about these middle-of-the-road teams, Max. You take a look at college football as a whole. First off, the game is starting at 8 p.m. That is very, very, very late. But what's interesting, Max, about UAB is, once again, this team, if you can look at their record, they're very mediocre, right? LSU this year, this could be the 3 easiest non-Power 5 games we have ever played. Obviously, Southern and FCS opponent that had a lot of historical relevance, but that honestly could have set us back because the game Southern did as much to lose that game as we did to win it. And I know Southern felt sick. They weren't nearly that bad of a team. They had just beaten a team, 86-0 the week before. Southern wasn't that bad, but they played poorly, and it helped us, obviously. And, that obviously sucked. And then you played New Mexico, whose coach has the worst fourth down decision-making I think I've ever seen. They were terrible. We shut them out. So now we play UAB. This is by default going to be the toughest non-Power 5 conference game that we have. I think this is going to be very tricky. You thought Arkansas was a look-ahead spot. This one is even more of a look-ahead spot to Texas A&M. I obviously the 14-point spread is something that is very, very interesting. I don't think you can really point at any point spread in recent memory from an SEC West champion versus a non-Power 5 team. And just to obviously, put that into perspective here, and what Max's Super Chat brings up is, you look at a point spread of 14, right? Now, this isn't the most apples to apples comparison here, but just for reference, when LSU played Georgia in the SEC championship game in 2019, LSU was a 14-point favorite versus Georgia. LSU was a 14-point favorite versus Oklahoma. So I'm not saying this version of LSU is that version of LSU, but the point is Vegas views the gap between those two teams as the same gap between LSU and UAB. Now, it's not necessarily true. UAB or Vegas sets a point spread so they can get equal amount of action. So in actuality, LSU is probably like a 16 or 17-point favorite. I think that is the case, but I am a little shocked that that point spread is that low. I really am. So we'll see. What's up, Jerry Berry? Good to see you. Larry, good to see a lot of beautiful peeps creeping on here. What's up, Mark? Good to see you. Carvis, Emperor. Mike says LSU 94, UAB 3. I think that would cover the spread. Good to see you, Mick. Glad to see you're feeling better. Not only was Troy coached by Coach O, LSU coached by Coach O, Troy was coached by Neil Brown. Now, he's probably going to get fired at the end of the year here at West Virginia, but he's a good coach. I mean, he's a decent coach, right? So, yeah. Now, we go to the poll question here. Who is this year's team MVP? And a lot of you are saying it is indeed Harold Perkins. Very interesting. I like that. Now, talk about DeMario Tolan. Thank you again, Max, for your generosity here. Another super chat from you. DeMario should get a decent amount of snaps. There you go. I feel really good about Greg Penn now because Greg Penn had some really rough games, and versus Arkansas, he was one of our best players on the field. And that was honestly the first game where Greg Penn had as good, if not better, performance than Micah Baskerville, who has been spectacular for us this year. And I feel really happy for Greg Penn because it's been rough for him. And DeMario Tolan started, and Brian Kelly brought this up verbatim, right? And this was something that we were bringing up on the live stream. DeMario Tolan was coming for that starter's job, and Brian Kelly brought it up. Hey, DeMario Tolan was coming on his heels. Pause. What was catching up to him, and you take a look at what Greg Penn did this past weekend. He performed like someone that was getting ready to lose his job. Right. And I give Greg Penn a lot of credit for performing under pressure. Something like that really sucks if you are about to get surpassed by a true freshman that just arrived. Now he was around for spring, but he really didn't play till the fall. It's very, very, very interesting. So, yeah, he's played a lot better. And, the Alabama game going up against Jameer Gibbs right time, it's very, very interesting. So, yeah. Now, give an early shout out to Pressy Collection, PressyCollection.com. Don't worry, LA Mom, we're still going to do our Pressy Collection trivia a little bit later, but I wanted to show some love to Anthony Starr Presley and Presley Collection. Okay, let's go to Jackson here with the Liverpool backdrop. I love it. Savion Jones also a flash. Very nice to see. Yeah, and he was phenomenal as well. That was Savion's best game. So you notice something that happens when you play a backup quarterback like Arkansas had to play this past weekend. A lot of guys have their best games, right? And to me, I'm going to be honest, as impressive as Harold Perkins was versus Arkansas, we kind of knew that didn't really shock anybody that had been watching LSU football. It might have shocked the country, and it might have shocked some of you, right? It was a truly transcendent performance, but we had seen that. The more impressive stuff to me was Greg Penn, Savion Jones, Joe Fouché had a wonderful game. Obviously, he had a lot riding on that game. But, for me, Jackson, I think one thing that's going to be very interesting as we move forward is, can the guys that played their best game versus Arkansas, a team playing with really poor backup quarterback play, can this team and the players that had their best game continue that versus UAB, continue that versus Texas A&M, a team that's not really that great? And if they continue to do that, that means Greg Penn is a for real SEC starter. Savion Jones is for real SEC starter. And that's the thing. You've got to put and stack those performances together. One thing that's very interesting about Greg Penn is this is only his second year. He is a true sophomore. And this is a defense full of mostly very, very, very young players and lots and lots and lots of old guys, right? I mean, guys that are year 4, year 5, year 6. So it's very, very, very interesting. So look, that's not to, say what Harold Perkins did wasn't impressive. It's just something that we knew he could do, right? Anybody that knows anything about Harold Perkins knows that that's not going to be the only game where it's going to look like that. There's going to be plenty more. We knew Ojolari was great. We knew Wingo was great. We knew Jaquelin Roy was great. But it was good seeing everybody else play well as well. Now, obviously, there's a lot to get to as far as the offensive performances are concerned. And look, there was a lot of players that had their lowest graded performance versus Arkansas. And if you're a member of the PHL Patreon, you have seen that. Go to patreon.com/LSU Football. You get my full game grades, get all my extra film studies, all my extra analytical breakdowns that I do. Patreon.com/LSU Football. Okay. Here's one of our mini patrons, Sherry Berry. So it's very good. Yeah, Mason Smith is going to be pretty key next year for us, as Jaquelin Roy will obviously go to the NFL. Really excited about Mason Smith coming back next year. But the truth, Mark, is you want to see in these next couple of games. His dad obviously is a big fan of what we do here. You want to see Jacoby and Guillory get more snaps versus UAB. See if there's any gas left in the tank for Bryce Langston. See if there's potential Quincy Wiggins sightings. I don't think he's played a snap yet. He might have. I don't know. Now you can get some reps. And then we get into, obviously, the spicier players for LSU, and that's the quarterbacks, right? And I do think this is true as far as Walker Howard is concerned. Now, I know some of you are big nuts people. We have people close to us that watch the channel. We also have people like Simper, who knows Walker Howard personally and has seen him play every snap of his high school career. Now, I will say this, right? Jayden has been phenomenal. And I did a deep dive on him earlier today, and the record amount of sacks that he is taking in the SEC, but it's actually okay for a quarterback like him to take as many sacks as he's taken. But against Georgia, he's going to have to start ripping some big time throws, right? But look, I really, 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 and this goes to Carvis's point right here. We have freshman and sophomore playing elite. What I think is going to be very interesting is if we do blow UAB out, are we going to see Garrett Nussmeier or are we going to see Walker Howard? I will say this, and I don't get much insider information or anything like that. Well, I do and I don't, right? I'm not an insider. I don't really want to be an insider, but I do know that LSU wants to see Walker Howard. They want to see more. Okay. I still think Garrett Nussmeier goes in the game before Walker Howard. I do. But I do think LSU wants to see what they have. And for me, something that's very interesting about, Walker Howard and just, overall what he could potentially bring to this offense is, he was such a highly rated recruit. But it would be very interesting to see how the Dim Brock offense looks with him, right? Because even though Ritter and JAYDEN Daniels have very similar traits, I think Walker is someone that would like sit in the pocket a little bit longer and actually rip some of these throws. And once again, that's not really Jaden's game. And that's fine. You can win a lot of games with Jaden playing the way that he's playing. But something else I do know, and this has honestly been proven, and I honestly think it is more important now than what it used to be. The one thing that this year has proven is that you don't really know anything until you actually play games. You don't really know a whole lot about your team until you actually start playing games. And you don't really get that many games. You only get 12 a year. Hopefully you get 15. But, I would like to see Walker Howard play in an actual game. I do. So we shall see what happens. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I just think for me, I don't know. I watched Jaden, and I just did. I broke down every play of the Arkansas game, and it was very interesting. Like for instance, the 20-yard run, his best run of the day. There were throws there that could have gone for more yardage, and that's fine. You still got 20 yards. Obviously, if you throw it, you got to hope that someone catches it on the other end, or it doesn't get intercepted, or the ball comes out of your hand fine, or you don't get sacked, or you don't get stripped, or whatever. But I will say that the Arkansas game was a step back for Jaden, and I do think there are some throws that he would like to have back from that game. And it is very interesting. So for those that missed the Jaden deep dive from earlier, he is he has the lowest big time throw percentage of any quarterback in all of Division I college football. But he also has the lowest turnover worthy play percentage in all of college football. So what that tells me is, the benefit of him not actually throwing the big time throws, if you will, is that if you don't try and attempt the big time throws, you actually prevent the turnovers. So, I spoke to somebody close to Jaden, and, cold weather was a factor. I do think, the hangover was a factor. I do think the middle of the LSU offensive line in particular regressed. I do think that was a factor. But there were some misses. There were, okay? And that was just one of the many, okay? So if you want to, check out the hour-long film study, you can. But he was good enough to win, And I think the biggest concern was our zone read game wasn't as good as we thought it was going to be versus Arkansas. Obviously, the fumble early what was crucial. Everyone, including Vegas, expected the Tigers to have a letdown. We hit our expectations. We not only hit our expectations, we exceeded them. Now, this is what I'll say, okay? And I'll be as honest as I possibly can as far as like expectations and all of that. It's very important to think about college football in terms of end results and compare it to what actually will work out in the long term. Okay. Now, you guys know that, and I say this a lot, college football is a very wacky game. Okay. There's a lot of weirdness in this sport. But the truth still remains the same, that in the modern game, you've got to hit explosive plays. You've got to be able to stretch the field. And in our best games offensively this year, we've hit bombs. When we needed to in the biggest spots versus Alabama, we hit bombs. We ripped it, right? And, for me, John Sibley is such a good super chat. We won some games this year that we were very fortunate to win, right? And I've gotten a lot of pushback on this, saying, well, you don't bring up that other teams make mistakes when they lose to us or when they beat us. And once again, that's what I'm saying. College football is a very wacky game. But, this is the simple truth about, college football is that, well, the college football playoff champions, more often than not, well, actually, they all have. And I think 90% of the teams that have made the college football playoff have averaged 6.2 yards per play versus Power 5 competition. Okay? It is the most important stat, in my estimation. There's a lot of different stats, but I think 6.2 yards per play is a good barometer, right? It's something that we can all understand. And all the great teams get to that number. And right now we're at 5.42. So we're nowhere close, honestly. And we have only had 2 games this year where we've averaged over 6 yards per play. And to me, that's the sign of a decent offense. We don't turn it over. We don't beat us. But the truth is, if we didn't have an obscenely good defense, we probably don't win as many games as we win, right? And the truth is, this year, as far as like Vegas expectations, we reached them because Brian Kelly found ways to win the game. Our guys played really hard and they found ways to win the game. And, that you give BK a lot of credit for that. You really do. Us winning every game since the Tennessee game. We've had some close game luck along the way. So be it. You got to win close games. But some of this also is, let's take the Auburn game. We know Auburn's not a good team. They had a lame duck coach at the time, and, they weren't that great. We averaged 3.7 yards per play in that game. They averaged 6.3 yards per play. I would love for anyone to find a game where that was the case ever in the Southeastern Conference. Now, I'm not saying I'm not happy we didn't win the game. I'm very happy we won that game. And a lot of that obviously was Greg Brooks and Harold Perkins, and our best player that game was Coy Moore. But we're very lucky. We're very, very lucky that we exceeded our Vegas expectation. So I'm very, very lucky. I feel very, very lucky. So only threw 17 passes, though. But there is a difference. And this is why, I try and add numbers, but also add context to those numbers. Jayden also doesn't rip it. So when you take a sack, that counts as a run, right? And that's very important to keep in mind. So called passes versus runs can tip the balance in, your balance. And, the one thing that's very concerning, and I brought this up on Blake's show, I brought this up on pretty much every show. Um, we we had a good running game, right? If you have a good running game, you normally don't associate, a good running game with something that struggles as much as LSU's offense struggles, right? Normally a quarterback struggles because teams stop your run and you can't really do anything about it. But huh? They did a lot about it, as in nothing about it. We ran at them at will. We're able to get what we wanted to get. Our running backs had their best game in terms of arm tackles broken, making guys miss. John Henry's got to hold on to the football, and lucky enough he goes down. But outside of that, they were phenomenal. Now, there were some pass protection pickups that I thought could have been a little cleaner, but even then, pass protection was okay. I have that's what made what happened versus Arkansas very concerning. And what's very interesting to me is, I watched the Tennessee game versus Georgia. Tennessee had a few shots over the top, and I do think there's going to be opportunities for us to get over the top of them. I do. If you got the athletes on the outside, you can get over the top of Tennessee, of Georgia. And Tennessee just didn't hit their shots. So you've got to be able to do that. Carter, I pray y'all find a way to beat Georgia, please. My neighbor is a UGA fan. Has made my life a living Hades. Go Vols and go Tigers. Yeah, Cassie, look, I'm glad you're the one Tennessee fan saying that you hope we beat Georgia, because obviously that would be bad for you guys, right? Because then it could come down to LSU and Tennessee for a playoff slot. But if we're objectively, and I'm not just, placating the Cassie here just to do it, but if we're objectively looking at the two teams and the two resumes, I had a conversation with somebody about this on the phone, and he is probably the biggest LSU fan I know. He told me, he's like, hey, if I'm in that committee room, I'm putting Tennessee over LSU. They beat us head to head, which they did, and they've honestly just looked better overall this year. Now, I'm not saying Tennessee is just this ungodly team, but our resumes are essentially the same if you look at it. So yeah, let's be honest, they've been better in more games than we've been. So we'll see. Obviously, if Baylor beats TCU, does TCU still go to the college football playoff? And sports players always regress to what they know best. 85 will light it up because he's already regressed to the mean. If he has two bad games in a row, then the statistics say you worry. Yeah, Jay, I am going to be interested to see Jayden this next week versus UAB, because, you can look at it in two different ways. There have been a lot of games where Jayden just hadn't looked that great, right? Just him individually. Now he's been big in big spots, but the truth is he had 3 games in a row where he looked fantastic, right? Zone read game, throwing, all of it, right? But even then, if you actually go look at the throws themselves, right? Let's take the Florida throw to Jure down the sideline. Well, a big reason why he decided to rip it was because he knew he had a free play from the offsides penalty. So it's very interesting. You want to see him actually just start doing that just within the structure of the play itself. I told my friend LSU would be 10-2. Thank you for the super chat, Tyler. Hopefully they don't let me down at A&M. That game really scares me. I know they're not playing good right now, but they are full of talent. Yeah, they're going to be up to play that game. And by the way, you could be like Tyler tonight, get your PHL shirt, and I'm including in every single order a Jayden card, a Keyshawn card, and a Derek Stingley card. I don't think they're going to let you down at A&M. I really don't. But I will say this to Cassie's point. If LSU does lose to Texas A&M but beat Georgia, Tennessee is definitely getting in over LSU, right? With 1 loss versus a 3-loss team. with, one of those losses being to a very bad Texas A&M team. So I don't think UT is just automatically out if LSU beats Georgia. But look, I'm not too worried about Texas A&M. I'm more worried about UAB at this point. And once again, it's a 14-point spread. It's not anything. It's not anything crazy, right? But for me, Tyler, I'll say this once, and I'll say it a million times over. I do think. I do think Texas A&M will play up. Now, it's a little bit different of a situation than what we were in last year, right? Ed Orgeron had won a national championship. And while the program was burned to the ground, there was already clarity for the future. We knew that was going to be Ed Orgeron's last game. We knew he had already won a national championship. And we were 5-6, needing that win to go to a bowl game, right? I do think it's a little bit different, and I also think this is true. I think Jimbo's offense is worse than our offense last year. I know a lot of you might not believe that, but it's true. Now, if you were a PHL subscriber or a Power Hour SEC subscriber, you know that we've brought that up plenty of times, that Jimbo Fisher's Texas A&M offense just isn't something that was going to work out in the long term. And A&M's got a big-time business decision to make. Do they bring in someone to run the offense? Will Jimbo let someone come in and run the offense? Or does Jimbo say, look, it's my way or the highway, I'm calling the plays? So we'll see. But yes. Type Y for yes, type N for no. Walker Howard should play Saturday or over Garrett Nussmeier. Type Y for yes, type N for no. After JAYDEN is obviously done blowing out UAB, type Y for yes, type N for no. Should Walker Howard play over Garrett Nussmeier? Okay. It's not out of the question that Tennessee drops one of these two games at the end of the year. So before the year, I actually let's see. No. Still think Nuss should get the snaps, but it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me if we see Walker Howard or Garrett Nussmeier. It wouldn't shock me. But I think Nuss is going to go in first. So I look at Tennessee. They have two more games, South Carolina and Vanderbilt, right? They should win both of them. Now, I will say this, okay? You guys know the stat. The stat, I've been hammering the stat for a while. There still hasn't been a team since 2019 LSU to win true back-to-back road games. There hasn't been one, okay? There have been a ton of instances where this has happened, not including the year 2020. So, just going to put it out there. Georgia played Mississippi State on the road last week. They go on the road and play Kentucky. Kentucky coming off the most embarrassing loss of the Mark Stoops era. Kentucky's going to come out and play hard this weekend versus Georgia. Now, Georgia should still hammer them, but 22 points is a lot for a team going back-to-back on the road. Now, Georgia's a lot like 2019 LSU in that they're a really, really freaking good team. But are they that good? Right? This is a Georgia team that doesn't play a lot of true road games. Same thing is true for Tennessee. At South Carolina, at Vanderbilt to end the year. Okay? That's tough. At Georgia, you saw that they didn't play well. That had as much to do with the opponent. But their only other true road games at Pittsburgh, where they were taken into overtime. Pitt's a decent team. So, and then at LSU, they had a bye week before. So they got to go back to back at South Carolina, at Vanderbilt. Two teams that honestly aren't good, but they actually feel okay with how their seasons have gone, right? So we shall see. What's up, John? Good to see a lot of you coming in from the Pels game. Let's go, Pels. Does Dellinger start? I hope so. I hope he gets a chance to play, right? Really rough game for Miles Frazier this last week. He's been up and down this year, more good than bad, but he had some rough spots. Once again, it's a road game. Offensive line sucks. Offensive line play sucks when you have to go on the road. Okay? Cass, you got to go to the Pitt game? That's cool. An underrated city college football market, right? A lot of big cities are NFL over college. It's an underrated college football market with a lot of history. Mark May, obviously Dan Marino. So very interesting. I love their running back. Also, I took Pitt -5. Pretty crazy. But, like Brian Kelly said, to start his press conference, I will say this. There are we do have a, PHL viewer who works for the University of Virginia. I have a lot of friends that, went to UVA. My condolences, right? This sucks. Obviously, it's another senseless gun violence. Also, for those that aren't familiar, that only sees it in the news, whatever, there are a lot of Louisiana players that play for Virginia, right? And some of which were involved in this shooting. Okay, it sucks. My heart sank for that campus. So yes, my heart goes out to Charlottesville. Any word on Goodwin and Emory? We'll see about John. John gets banged up a lot. We'll see with Goodwin as well. So yeah, and for me, I always take those two players day to day, and it kind of adds into the allure, if you will, of Josh Williams, right? What's truly crazy about Josh is he's always there, right? I just think it is unbelievable what this guy's been able to accomplish at LSU, right? What's up with Jack Best? She's playing a lot, just not getting targets. But I get this question a lot. What about this guy? What about that guy? We need to get the football more to this guy or that guy. Part of Jayden Daniels being your quarterback is that he doesn't throw the football a lot. Like we had 15 pass attempts versus Arkansas. I think that was the fewest that Arkansas had actually faced, and their secondary had not been good all year. McLaughlin had been good for them, and Quincy McAdoo is someone that's come along for them. But I just think for me, I mean, look, Dre Jenkins hadn't really caught a whole lot of passes either recently, and he's still getting open. But yeah, it's tough. It's really, really, really tough. If we went out, that means we beat the number 6, 7, and first team in the nation. We 100% made it, right? Like right now, they're the number 6, 7, and 1 team. And obviously, Jacob, you would want Florida State to keep winning. And Florida State, for the second consecutive week, was the most dominant team in college football versus their opposition. And the teams, I mean, they beat down Syracuse, they're not bad. And the week before, they beat down Miami, they are bad. But, what's interesting is you want Florida State to keep winning. That's something that you definitely want to see happen. But, I've gotten a lot of this, right? Jacob, is LSU for sure in? I'm not sure. I'm just not. And I also think, let's just say you're the college football playoff. And right now, the college football playoff committee wants to stretch the playoff out to 12. Okay. College football wants to see a 12-team playoff. All right. They want to get it as quickly as they possibly can for 2024. Now, all right, Cassie, good luck with your exams. But the simple truth is this, Jacob, is if the college football committee really wants to get out to 12 teams, right? And they really want to have a 12-team format. Well, the best thing would be to leave LSU out, right? Because then they would say, look, we want to stretch this team. We want to stretch this thing out to 12 teams because of teams like LSU that got better as the season moved on, that had a team that in week 1 had a brand new coach and their team looks completely different. They have a different right tackle. They weren't playing a true freshman sensation defensive talent. They were a completely different team. Same thing is true for Tennessee, right? So the playoff committee would say, look, the sport can't have just 4 teams, which I prefer the playoff to stay at 4. I think 6 would actually be a perfect number, but 12 is better than 16, right? So, for me, the more I think about it, the more I think the committee wants LSU out. They want LSU to win out and them put Tennessee in over LSU, right? Now, the exact opposite of that is true as well. Maybe the committee will say, look, we want to put an emphasis on winning your emphasis. We want to put an emphasis on winning your conference, right? Well, if that's the case, you got to put LSU in. BK said he's in concussion protocol. And the thing that makes it kind of tricky, John, is the concussion protocol was from something that happened in practice. So, it's not like it happened in the game versus Alabama. So if it happened later in the week, there might be more hurdles because the point I'm making is not as much time has eclipsed since then to now. Okay. So there you go. So let me know when the college football, I'm actually just going to refresh it here. Let's see. Number 15. 15 Kansas State, Ole Miss to number 14. So they didn't fall a whole lot. Oh man, people are melting down that Washington is ranked number 17 and Oregon is ranked number 12. And Washington just beat Oregon. Do they have the same amount of losses? That's crazy. That's good. Creek. So there's me and Skipper right there. As you can see, I got my backdrop back. Same jersey there as in this photo right here. And Jay Hill made a big announcement tonight that he will be playing in the XFL next year. I agree with this. It wouldn't shock me if Walker got in, but I kind of want to see a little bit more of Nuss, especially after, the Auburn game and the New Mexico game where he started playing a little bit faster. And I actually do want to see more Nuss. There's Leonard right there in a PHL shirt. Rick holding it down. Love it. But that's the photo I'm looking for. There he is. Creek. I love it. Creek Dweller. If TCU and USC both lose and possibly Clemson too, Clemson's out. I think Clemson's out. TCU looks really good right now. That win versus Texas, it was a boring game. Sorry, John Silby, I won't spend too much time on this game, but yeah, give TCU credit. LSU, Tennessee, UGA, and the Big Ten champ. I could see that. There's Marcus in his PHL shirt. There you go. I still think this is the best photo of the year. That's just crazy. To this day, I've never seen that much grass in somebody's and someone's helmet. I haven't. Look at that. It's just classic. What is this? Carter, when you show Creek's picture, your arms stick out. It looks like he's moving. Let's see. Wait, what is it? Oh, yeah. That's crazy. It does kind of look like that. Oh, man. That is crazy. Let's go. Let's go. I love it. That is funny. You wore it to the TCU game? John Sibley. Why didn't you take a photo? I would have loved that. That is crazy. I love it. I really want to see some good time for both Nuts and Walker Howard. I'm not convinced that JD staying is the best opportunity for the team to win next season. I'm on the fence. Yeah, I'd love to see both of them as well. I think what's interesting about it, and we do have LSU's ranking in. They are officially number 6 in the college football playoff. So there you go. LSU officially number 6. So wild. So freaking wild. We are number 6. Obviously, truth still remains the same. Obviously, you control your own destiny. And Georgia, of course, is going to be number 1. Okay? So we'll put a full top 25 when we get a graphic here. The full top 25. But Michigan number 3, Ohio State number 2, Georgia number 1, number 4 TCU, and probably number 5 is Tennessee. I haven't seen 4 and 5 just yet. So there you go. Type Y for yes, type N for no. Who cares if Daniel stays? He will never beat out Howard. Howard is regularly referred to as the best quarterback on the team currently. So, Scooby, my question is, who is regularly referring to Howard being the best team on the team right now? Who specifically are you? I'm curious. Who specifically are you saying? I agree with it. But I'm curious. I'm very, very curious. Now, what's interesting about LSU being where they are right now is that they are ahead of USC. Okay. So that's a good thing if you're LSU. Because if it does come down between you and USC, if USC does indeed win out and win the Pac-12 championship, then that obviously changes a lot. It really does. So there you go. There's your full college football playoff rankings right there. Let's see if I can do this. Might be a little bit easier to see it this way. Thank you, LA Mom. I appreciate it. So there is your latest college football playoff rankings right there. Now, the first thing, obviously, is Tennessee still being ahead of LSU at this point. Now, how much will that change if LSU beats Georgia? I don't know. I will say this, okay? And I was explaining this to somebody on the phone earlier, right? So the College Football Playoff Committee, they do actually look at the games and they do rank the games and they do factor in head-to-head rankings and all of that. But what's very important to keep in mind is, well, the College Football Playoff Committee is formed of very busy people, okay? And this is very flawed logic. All the talk and controversy over the rankings is exactly why we need expansion. No, it's number one, it's good to have conversation about a sport, right? The second thing about expansion is Alabama would still comfortably be in right now, right? They've lost 2 games. I don't like teams comfortably still being in the playoff despite losing 2 games. That means Alabama at this point of the season would need to survive Austin Peay and Auburn to get into the playoff. It's not good. It's not good for the sport at all. I think Danny has a point. Carter, you might be right if the fact that Jayden might not get better. And what if Nuss Howard are ready and better in camp? They very well could be. And I think what's interesting, and thank you for the Super Chat, Carvis. The thing that's very interesting and why the UAB game could be very important here is you don't really know anything until games, right? Until the games are played. And the one thing that Jayden Daniels does, and this was kind of an underlying theme in the film study that I released earlier tonight. Okay, it's shorter for people that are interested. Is yes, Jayden Daniels takes a lot of sacks. Yes, Jayden Daniels misses a lot of throws downfield. Yes, Jayden Daniels will have these games where he only throws for 80 yards. But the truth is, he has something called a high floor, right? He doesn't have a high ceiling, if that makes sense. A higher ceiling quarterback in year 4 wouldn't have these games where, he's throwing for less than 100 yards, right? But the good thing about a high floor quarterback is he's not going to lose you games, and he's also oftentimes going to be a timely quarterback. And the one thing that Jayden Daniels does give you is a lot of intangibles, a lot of clutchness, if you will. And honestly, one of the best things about him is his durability, right? Jayden is going to go out there and play at a very high level and more than likely not get hurt. The number one criticism of Jayden this offseason, which never made any sense to me, was, well, in SEC play, he's going to get hurt. He's not going to survive an SEC schedule. He's been just fine as far as health is concerned. His only time he's been banged up was when he slid on his own accord wrongly on thick Auburn turf, right? There's a lot to like about Jayden Daniels, but everything points to him being just a high floor quarterback, right? We haven't seen the ceiling as a thrower. Now, we've seen elite throws. The Alabama game, he made a lot of really, really big throws. I just thought we were going to see more of that versus Arkansas. And in fact, we went backwards in a lot of ways. So, I do think the staff will want to see what they have in this UAB game. And also, one thing that would be pretty interesting about, let's say, Garrett Nussmeier, Walker Howard, athletically, they don't really hold a candle when it comes to Jayden's athleticism. Athletically, he is as gifted as they come, right? He's super durable. He's actually a pretty powerful runner. And obviously he's special. Not good, not great, but special. And what's very interesting is Jayden's athleticism is so elite that his EPA per play is the exact same as Bryce Young and Jordan Travis, who are elite throwers and processors of the game. So it's very, very interesting. I hear it from nearly every media group I follow. So once again, nobody specific, as well as former players that attend practices. Okay. Cool. Take your word for it. HP 40 for Heisman. What's good? Kobe Richardson. He's still around. Just Jarek Bernard Converse and Mekhi Garner are playing really well. Dev, I answered it. Good to see you, man. I thought that was very interesting, putting the water on the ice. I don't know. I'm not a grounds crew member. But yeah, there were conditions, right? Playoff game in Tiger Stadium is going to be awesome when they expand. I agree with that. Now, and look, I'm not saying the 12-team playoff itself isn't going to be great. I just don't like what it's going to do to all the other aspects of college football. And you hose the field. Best player in college football is Harold Perkins, objectively. I love it. I love the objectively part. I don't think there's a lot of people that disagree with you. Look, Greg McElroy was the one who tweeted that out, not us. Not us. That system was the BCS. I referenced that a little bit earlier. Really sad stuff, man. I hope he does as well. I really do. But I do think, you know, these next few games are going to be pretty big, right? So there you go. So I'm actually going to experiment with something. And take a look at this playoff ranking. Tomorrow, LSU, USC, Alabama, Clemson, Utah, Penn State, Oregon, North Carolina, Mississippi, Kansas State. Should have given some of that chicken broth. Let me ask you guys this. Type Y for yes, type in for no. Do you listen to the PHL podcast, the free podcast that I put out on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, all that good stuff? Type Y for yes, type in for no. Because today I actually looked at the analytics for the first time, and I was like, okay, it's like decent. Like I just released some episodes, but how many of you would like for me to put the live stream audio on the podcast, or would you just prefer more YouTube content? Because once I reach the end portion of the season, I look at the I look at the analytics of stuff that I do, right? So sometimes the analytics say, look, people like a good film study deep dive. I released a video from earlier today, and I think it's not performing well. So I want to do obviously stuff that I like to do, but I also like to do stuff that you guys want to do. Obviously, we're growing, we're doing great as a channel, but yeah, I do. It's totally free on iTunes, and it's different than what we do here. You want me to put it on YouTube? So put some of the episodes on YouTube. So yeah, so I do a free Power Hour LSU podcast, and I bring it up sometimes on here. Show you this really quickly. So here is the actual hosting site, so you can get all the episodes right here. rss.com/Power Hour LSU. But if you have iTunes, Spotify, or anything like that, you could obviously go get the podcast on there, right? And that's where most people actually listen to their podcasts, right? So I'm trying to grow the channel. Obviously, I want to take this to the next level. We all want to see this thing grow. I think you guys want to see it grow. Obviously, our live stream numbers are still great, but I'm curious. I'm very, very curious. You want hats? They are getting printed. So yeah, it is a little bit different than what I do here. So what I'm going to do tomorrow is I'm actually going to post the audio from our live streams there, right? And see how it actually does. Maybe it does well, maybe it doesn't. But, for me on Mixcloud, that's crazy. So, for me, obviously, like I want to be bigger. I want to keep growing this thing. And I'm going to be honest, I'm never satisfied with, where this thing is. I want more people in the Patreon. I want more people in the Discord. Um, I want to do more film studies and all of that. But yeah, who's going to senior night when Marcellus wants to know, hey, where can I get a plate? Let's see. Let's see, Marcellus. And don't forget, for those that aren't familiar, I have Power Hour SEC. We are so close. See, 768 subs. We're so close to 1,000 subscribers. I could taste it. Carter posted after T-Bob and Jake. I have a gap in listening schedule until Hanny. Okay. But yeah, I have a ton of episodes on there. And yeah. Oh, yeah, that throw from Jayden was a really good one. Look left, throw right. And could it have been delivered earlier to the right? Yeah, but I'm always going to be a little bit more sympathetic if your throw is late on your second read than if it's on your first, right? Kind of like the touchdown throw to Jure versus Ole Miss was a little late, but I'm fine with that considering, he had to look all the way one way to all the way the other, right? I appreciate you, Emperor. See ya. You like the Florida quick on location stream? Hate when people are always making excuses for JD5. Well, some of them are valid, right? Like his protection did break down some, right? Um, but like kind of like what we brought up in the study earlier today, LSU doesn't have the worst offensive line in the SEC. And if you just looked at sacks, it would seem like LSU has the worst offensive line in the SEC. They don't. It's just we take a lot of sacks because we don't rip it, right? So it's interesting. It's very, very interesting. So yeah, sacks I believe are more of a quarterback stat than the offensive line. So yeah. Jordan UGA learned a lot about LSU too by watching us against Arkansas. Crazy for the film studies. Oh, okay. So Danny super chats exactly. You see, Danny and I, we got that ESPN. LSU does not have the worst offensive line in the SEC. They don't. Like Auburn's offensive line is the worst. They are abysmal. Ironically, they played okay versus us, but they're really bad. They're really, really bad. Now, they were worse with TJ Finley back there because TJ can't run, but Auburn's offensive line is objectively not great. They're just not great. Okay. So we're not the worst. I know for sure. Okay. Kentucky's offensive line is worse than us. And they've actually given up the same amount of sacks as we have. But ironically, they have 100 more sack yards than we do. Or it's like 60 to 100. I don't remember. But it's a lot more than what we have. Okay. So, the truth here is LSU's offensive line is fine, right? It's not elite. It's obviously had a rotating door. But the truth is they're fine. Now, I would like to see this unit with Garrett Dellinger at left guard. Thought Miles Frazier has been very hot and cold this year. But, the truth is LSU's offensive line, while it isn't spectacular, they're okay. They're okay. Not where they need to be. They would like to be better. There are some aspects of the offensive line where they struggle. And obviously the biggest Achilles heel to the offensive line right now are twist stunts or stunts. One guy go through this gap and another circles around. Okay. So, for me, I think the middle of the offensive line versus Arkansas was the biggest issue. The unit was mostly great versus Alabama. The unit was obviously very good versus Florida. The unit was obviously exceptional versus Ole Miss. And you look at some of these other games, Tennessee, they weren't great. But you had the Will Campbell thing happen. Florida State, they weren't great. We didn't have Emory Jones in there just yet. And our center was different and our guards were different. So you've had some objectively bad games. But for the most part, it's been a net positive. And I don't think LSU's offensive line is the worst. Jared, thank you so much for your super chat. I really appreciate you big time, man. Oh, John said, with Carter, for you to go big, you got to reinvent your process all over country and train a team for all conferences. Then you have to make all teams and conferences your customers with brand. Carter, the Power Hour. I'll keep that in mind. Huh? That's a lot. That's a lot. But obviously, I take it one channel and one day at a time, one play at a time, 1 second at a time, one blade of grass at a time. I do think that Arkansas's coaches figured out a way to subtract the explosive plays that have benefited LSU so far. Now, in upcoming games, you could bet that our opponents will do what Arkansas did. Okay? Hal, I love you. Love me some Cherry Berry as well. But she's right. Arkansas did a lot. All right. They got very aggressive with our receivers. Dwight McGlothern clamped us. He dominated us. And let's call a spade here. And they gave us the middle of the field. They're like, look, we know that you guys don't like throwing to the middle. We know that you guys don't feel comfortable throwing slants to the middle. We're going to give you the middle. And they did a lot. And they were giving us stuff, right? They were challenging us to do it. And we didn't do it. Okay. They would blitz some. They would bring a bunch of layered blitzes where it would be the first wave of the defensive line, then a looper, and then another blitzer coming from the third level. Couldn't block it. Now, if you do pick up those kinds of blitzes, it does deoccupy a lot of space in the passing game, but it's hard to pick up those blitzes. And they just kept coming at us. So Arkansas actually did a lot, Hal. And Brian Kelly said it. And look, I will say this about BK, and I'm not just bragging about him just to brag it. it's really hard for me to watch a full game and process everything that's going on, right? I feel like I have a decent football mind, but you hear me a lot say, well, I kind of want to rewatch this or rewatch that. It is kind of amazing where Brian Kelly is sitting, where he's on the field. Like, you can't see everything from the field. And he is able to process a lot of this information, and directly after the game, near perfectly break down everything that went wrong. And I am blown away how accurate he is with like his assessment of the game as it's actually happening right in front of him. A lot of coaches will say, I need to go watch the film. Yeah, I need to go watch the film. It blows my mind how good he is at processing that. Now, I'm not saying I'm blown away by his football acumen, but I'm just saying it's a lot to process. And it's amazing how much he gets right. Now, some of that, it's obviously, the assistants in his earphones telling him what's going on, but it's still crazy. Do you think Arkansas found the formula to shut down JD5? And will that cost us with Tamu and Georgia if he doesn't get past his avoidance of the middle of the field and take deep shots? It's a good question. Let me put it this way, Danny, and I think this would be a little bit easier to comprehend for everyone. Okay, college football's random, and obviously we could be Texas A&M in Georgia with the way that Jayden's playing right now. We can. But a lot of things would need to go our way, okay? The truth is this year, and it may not seem like it because we had a very weird loss to Florida State to start the season, but we have had a lot of luck, right? A lot of our results have been fortunate. We've gotten a lot of lucky bounces. We were very fortunate to win some of these games, and that's all there is to it. I had a commenter really come after me for, me saying that in another live stream, but it's true, right? The Auburn game, a lot of things went our way after going down 17-0. We had the Ojolari strip sack. We had a very good bounce for Jay Ward to pick it up and scoop and score. And then Coy Moore essentially threw the game away for them as well. It's just true. It's not me piling on Coy Moore, but it's what happened. And look, the Alabama game, I thought we were the better team. The box score was dead even though. And Alabama had a lot of calls go their way that game. So I still, it's a close game, and, we were able to pull it out. The Arkansas game was very fortunate, right? We didn't really do anything great offensively. The fake punt call, we got very lucky that Mike Jones committed the holding penalty. And that allowed us to repunt, and then, we played field position and eventually scored. We had a lot of things go our way. And then obviously the biggest was their star quarterback got hurt before we had to play him. And, I'll say this, Danny. If we have more of these 80-yard passing games, if we have more of these games where, the other team's healthy and they're not missing a star quarterback, we're probably going to lose one of these games, right? It's going to be hard. The key in the modern game to beat the best of the best is you've got to hit your explosives when you get the opportunity to hit them. And if you don't, the great teams are very good at fixing those explosive play issues. And look, for me, I think, one of the biggest things, Danny, is you go back and look at the Alabama game, and you look at Jayden's game. Early in the game, he did miss some shots. But when it really mattered, the throws that he made throughout the entire fourth quarter of that game were so ridiculously difficult that, it was really, really, really impressive. Like, it was as good as the quarterback position can be played. Now, Cameron, thank you so much. Cameron joined our PHL Patreon. Congratulations. We we thank you. I really appreciate that. Cameron Canna, that's pretty cool. But the truth here, Danny, is I don't think necessarily Arkansas found a formula. It's we need Jayden to play better, right? Because there have been a lot of analytical studies about how much college defenses and how much just defenses matter in the sport of football. And yes, there are players that really do move the needle, like a Harold Perkins or a Tyrann Mathieu, a Will Anderson, Patrick Willis, if you will. But really, most college football offenses and just offenses in general are the byproduct of themselves, right? And defenses oftentimes are, the reflection of the offense that they face, right? So the truth is, so much of what the modern game actually is what your quarterback is doing. Now, what do we know about Jayden Daniels? Well, does he have a good offensive line? They're okay. They're not perfect, but they're not Auburn bad. They're not. We figured out the center position, Danny, which is something that you've been harping on. Charles Turner's had a really good year. Arkansas game, not so much, but overall he's been fine. Offensive line's played better though. Running backs, running game is working just fine. Wide receivers and tight end, they've gotten better. I got to be honest, they've gotten better. So, play calling. As you guys know, I think Denbrock's fine. It's not the best, not the worst. So, you would like to see as the season comes to an end here. Obviously, Georgia's going to be tough. Texas A&M, it's a road game. It's going to be tough. We would like to see Jayden go out there and dominate one of these games on his own, right? Now, obviously, you can't just do it on your own. You need, obviously, a supporting cast. You need a lot of different things, to go your way. But, the one thing you could say about the Alabama game that is an undeniable truth is that Jayden won us that game. That wasn't just him. It was Perk. It was Ojulari. It was a lot of different people. Josh Williams, if you will, Mason Taylor. Keyshawn was great versus Alabama. But ultimately, Jayden was big. Like, not just big, huge, gigantic. Decision-making, all of it. He was an assassin. He was unbelievable, right? And, to have the game that he had versus Arkansas, yeah, the team was dealing with sickness. Yeah, the team were dealing with the elements. Yeah, it was the first time that they've played in cold weather practice or anything in eons, honestly. So now that that's out of the way, you could take away all the cold weather excuses. And, now that we've had this bad game, let's see you dominate these last couple of games. You're going to get BTJ back. Let's see you finish it out. I think Turner struggled. I do, Danny, but yeah, we do not throw over the middle. We don't. I have the passing charts. We do not throw over the middle. Now, what's that? Era? So I do want to experiment with something. Danny, thank you so much for your super chat. Really quickly, I know LA Mom knows the answer to this, but there is something for me that, it's just been on my mind. This, and when you think about, Jayden Daniels' performance versus Alabama, I think about excellence. I think about someone stepping up to the occasion. I think about, something really special, especially with the holiday season coming up, right? I think about, just somebody that honestly is on my mind quite a bit. There you go. You had been beaten so many times, LA Mom. That's why I gave you the cue. Okay. Danny comes in second and Jacob comes in third. There you go. I love it. Now, truth is, look, if you find that beautiful missus in your life, you don't want to, like screw it up, right? That's why you need to go to Pressy Collection and PressyCollection.com. It doesn't matter the lighting. That diamond just diamonds. You know what I'm saying? Pressy Collection, PressyCollection.com. Now, it's not just diamonds. It's all kinds of jewelry. Pressy Collection, PressyCollection.com. If you want a one-on-one consultation today, hit me up at Power Hour LSU or at Carter the Power, or you can just hit up at Star Pressy or the Pressy Collection. Just shoot them an email message, PressyCollection.com. I'm telling you, before you get that next piece of jewelry, Pressy Collection, PressyCollection.com. LA Mom, she was the first ever Pressy Collection trivia winner. So there you go. Now, they do when we play Alabama. Perkins with 8 tackles, 4 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. You're right, Mike. And honestly, I think his best play was on a pressure when they had a wide open receiver in the flats and he got his hand to affect the throw. I'm telling you, the most overrated stat, like Joe Burrow mentioned in our film study earlier. By the way, check out our film study after this is over on the sack problem for LSU. I'll share this, right? This is when at a young age I knew sacks were overrated. So I, as a pass rusher, was a play my senior season where, I was able to get pressure right up the middle, and the quarterback, saw the A-gap pressure, and he threw it right into the hands of our linebacker, and he took it to the house for 6. I had sacks, but no sack meant as much to the game as the pressure I got right up the middle. Okay. But there wasn't a stat at the time. There weren't pressures that were kept up with at the time that showed that play was created by me. Right. So, pressures are just as important as sacks a lot of the times. Right. And Jaquelin Roy will be the first to tell you that, we didn't give him enough credit for some of the bull rush pressure he's gotten up the middle this year. So yeah. But yeah, this is true. This is the truth, right? Jayden doesn't like throwing over the middle. A lot of quarterbacks don't. Jalen Hurts doesn't throw over the middle that often. And he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. You don't have to throw over the middle, but it could be very fruitful. Sacks are only overrated if the other team does them. I don't know why. I'm just feeling great, man. QBs saying sacks don't matter. It's like a DB saying passing yards don't matter. Well, I'm not saying sacks do or don't matter, right? They do matter. But what I think sacks have done is, like, for instance, so there's been a lot of studies done on this. One shows that the pressures a defensive lineman make at the NFL level is more constant from year to year than the amount of sacks a defensive line makes from year to year. So in other words, if you were to be in a certain, let's say you're a general manager and you want an edge rusher to add to your team, right? And player X had 90 pressures, but 3 sacks, but player Y had 10 sacks, but only 40 pressures. you should get player X, right? Because player X generated more pressure. It's just the other player had more sacks. Now, sacks are random, right? There's coverage sacks that have nothing to do with the defensive lineman. It's just you had really good coverage, and the quarterback kind of just ran into you. But then there are sacks that, happen when you just beat the guy in front of you, like a Von Miller sack, if you will. So there's different kinds of sacks, right? What Joe Burrow was saying in that clip was, look, sometimes I take sacks if it's 3rd and 1,000,000 yards and I'm not in field goal range. I'm going to take a sack, right? Because I'm trying to get the yards to get on, to pick up the yards. Now, what I'll say is, I don't think a sack on 3rd down is good in plus territory because it could, influence your OC to not go for it on 4th. But I got the gist of what he was saying, right? And I'm not disagreeing with Joe just because he's Joe, right? I am wearing a Joe Burrow shirt, and I do have a Joe Burrow painting back there, but still. And yeah, I don't think it's as much frustrations. I just think it's more conversation. Like, I don't think anybody's really like. I think it's impossible really to be. I don't think it's bad to. Well, let me put it this way. I was looking at a couple of these comments here. I don't think anybody's frustrated with Jayden. I really don't. Like, I think we're a little shocked that, we took a step back offensively, but it's more so just like talking this out, trying to figure out what exactly happened. I at my heart am just an inquisitive person. I find it very interesting about like why things work. I think that's like more impressive than what actually happens is how you actually did it, right? No, everyone, any win's a good win, if you have an end results mentality, right? Obviously, defensively, it was phenomenal, but let me ask you this: do you think we win that game if KJ Jefferson is their quarterback? I don't know. Obviously, the game would be very different. Obviously, offensively, we would probably play a little bit more aggressive and better. But yeah, I think everybody's happy with the win, especially considering the place and time and how and where it happened. So yeah, as Derek points out, a win is a win. There's Kirk. I love Kirk. Huh? Y'all like that? Yeah, Haley's getting back at it, baby. That's why I put the jersey back up. Big announcement. Go on the XFL route. A win is a win. He's always sleeping. I'm telling you, Jay Hill just creeps, man. He's always watching us in the backdrop. I love it. I don't. I don't mention him at all. That boom, there he is. Let's go. He's not. Nah, Jared. He's got gas left in the tank, baby. He's got gas left in the tank. It's not too old. Feed him. Feed him, baby. Let's go, JL. I think you got you. I mean, you're ready. Let's go. JL, let him know you're ready to eat, baby. Let's go. I'm telling you, there's few things that have excited me more than like the official announcement. I love it. Feed him. I love it. Let's go. If Latavius can, let's go. Latavius Murray, his carries are gone, baby. I'll be fine. Body is fresh. Let's get it. Oh. Feed him. Feed him. Feed him. I love it. Sherry believes in you, J Hill. Let's go. I'm telling you, if you're playing anywhere near me, I'm gonna be there with 1,000 PHLers. Let's go. Let's go. I'm so freaking excited about this. I got you, Semper. I know you and J Hill been rocking and rolling. I got you. I got a few J Hill autos back here. There you go, Jared. You better change that tune, son. There you go. Here's one of my favorites right here. Got this one right here. PSA 10. ISO 3 color patch. Good auto. Thick card right here. Look at that. But this is always going to be my baby right here. Look at that. Let's eat. This is another one. This was actually sent to me by a viewer. Shout out to my guy Shane in Shreveport. I love it, man. Let's go. Let him sleep. Let him sleep. JL lacing up. Tell him, Danny. I agree with this, and I not only agree with this, and trust me, Danny and I don't always agree on everything, but tonight we have. It's rare. You can ask Danny this. She and I have had many of debates about the game of football, but I do agree with this. It's crazy how the NBA is a global game. We only have one major professional league. MLB, global game, only one major professional league around the world. It's not how the other sports leagues operates, right? There's room for another league. I really do mean that. I really do. And I love the NFL. I do. I don't get to watch it as much because I'm cutting film on Sundays and putting together videos from the college football day. But you know, there's I think I think there's more to it. Pegasus, you being a soccer fan honestly surprises me. I will never pass on that. More football, the better. The more jobs in the industry. You want to talk about, the head coach hiring practices. The issue isn't, so and so's not getting their opportunity or so and so didn't work hard. It's that there's only 32 of the jobs. Like there's just not a lot of jobs in professional American football. The more, the merrier. More leagues. Let's do it. And I'm really going to support the XFL. I really am. Obviously, Jay Hill playing, but like just in general, I think it's great. Think about all these LSU players that were really good but can't make it in the league. Well, they can't make it in the league because it's our long. Fletcher Cox is still playing, right? It's hard. It's really freaking hard. So, yeah, I mean, there's more to it. He hate me, but we keep balling. Let's go. Only the real ones remember he hate me. Only the real ones. Only the real ones. He hate me too. Let's go. Oh, man. Yeah, I don't watch MLS either, but I'll watch the Bundesliga. I watch some EPL. I watch other professional leagues. And just because you don't watch another league doesn't mean that there can't be another one or you can't support more than one. Let's go. He hate me. Legendary. Legendary. Let's go. Oh, the way I understand it is like there's going to be a draft, right? I love it. It's only 8 teams. I love this, man. I'm so freaking excited. So here are the teams. Okay. Jeremy Hill's been added to the XFL draft pool. It's dope, man. All right. Which team? I want you to guess right now wherever you are. Okay. Which team is Jeremy Hill going to go to in the draft pool? Is it the Tampa Bay Vipers? Is it the St. Louis Battlehawks? Is it the whatever Guardians? I can't see the team name there. The Seattle Dragons, the LA Wildcats, the Houston Roughnecks, the Dallas Renegades, or the DC Defenders? You think Jay Hill is going to be a roughneck? I wouldn't mind that. Let's go to TJ's super chat here. And TJ, here's what I'm going to do, man. You've been I don't know what happened. No, the battery didn't die. It just kicked me out. So here's what I'm going to do for you, TJ. Switch with the poll question here. Who is your team MVP? Harold Perkins won this poll by a wide margin. Pretty interesting. Kind of hard to disagree with it. I mean, there's a few other players. Obviously, Jayden, he plays the most valuable position. But you can give Jayden, obviously, that. He's going to be a Viper. Look at the Vipers. That's dope. My best buddy lives in Tampa. Let's see. Here's what I'm going to do for you, TJ. I'm going to dedicate a poll question for you. There you go, TJ. Poll question is up for you, my man. Battlehawk's a pretty legit name. I love it. I don't want him to be a dragon. Let's go. Pierce are going to Houston. Much love, TJ. So grade Mike Denbrock in his performance this year. So far, B is currently winning the poll. Just wild, man. So there you go, TJ. I'm gonna give Denbrock a B minus. Look, it could go to a B plus or a C plus either way. I think for me, the first thing is when I judge a play caller, I say, look, what do you have to work with? Okay. So the first thing is LSU had no idea what their offensive line should have looked like, right? And what I think happened was, the offensive line was just so poor versus Florida State that Jayden just really didn't have a chance. He just didn't. So what I think happened was LSU kind of had to reinvent themselves, and we had the Southern game to happen, 6 days after, and we really couldn't get a look in that game. So we had 2 games where we really just didn't know. Then, I had this Mississippi State game, and you're starting a true freshman at right tackle, and little did you know that was the actual thing that you should have started with. But they couldn't have known that. Then, as the game and as the season moved on, some of our best players were guys that arrived in the fall. And that becomes very complicated because I think with a first-year coach and so much roster turnover, and look, everybody had roster turnover, but especially with the first-year coach and new coordinators, they had no idea who were the good players on this team. And, I think last year we would have gotten a lot of things wrong about who the best players on this team are going to be if we just based it, TJ, off of what we saw in the spring, right? Nobody had Mekhi Wingo being one of the best defensive tackles in the sport. No one thought Micah Baskerville would clearly be our best off-ball linebacker. I thought Harold Perkins would be really, really good. I have a lot of receipts on that, but, the the best player potentially in defensively in the entire sport. And I didn't think that they knew that Emory Jones would be so great at right tackle, and he has been. They didn't know Josh Williams was going to be as great as he's been. So the weird and Jaden's been mostly great as the LSU quarterback. So it's hard, TJ, because the staff really didn't have a whole lot to base what they thought their offense was going to look like just based on what they saw in the spring. All right, Sherry, thank you so much for hanging out with us so late. I really appreciate your super chats and your support, and most importantly, your friendship. And I know your husband is happy that Alabama beat Ole Miss. I think that was the first time you and your husband were able to cheer for Alabama at the same time. But knowing you, Sherry, I doubt you were cheering for Alabama. Wade Phillips. Let's go. I give Jayden a lot of credit too. Emory's had a good year. He's not the workhorse. He's not going to be like what we expected him to be, but that's fine. He's definitely not a bust, like a lot of people wanted to label him. Now, this offseason, I told you it would be really hard for him to not be decent. He's been really good for us, and I'm very happy. So good to see you again, Nolan Leanders. XFL draft hasn't been announced, but it's expected to be held on November 16th. So in less than 2 hours. Pretty excited about that. Changing centers. So here's what we're going to do. We are approaching the 2-hour mark of tonight's live stream. So I'm going to answer as many questions as I possibly can in the next 5 minutes. And if you do super chat, we'll keep this thing moving all night. But there is a lot of stuff I still have to do before I go to bed tonight. So there's that. Okay. Next 5 minutes, I'll answer as many as I possibly can. LSU wins the SEC championship. They are in, period. I would like to think that, how. I don't know for sure, though. I don't know. I don't know. That's crazy. Crazy. Kind of crazy. As I was driving to the Alabama game, I was listening to Herm talk about Jayden Daniels. And I'm like, are they going to ask him that Jayden caught him watching film of Spencer Rattler? So, yeah, I mean, that's crazy. There we go. 145 and 20 carries versus the Hogs. Man, that was such a the Anthony Jennings game. then the man, that Outback performance was crazy. So yeah, I'll say this again for those that just joined us. Someone that you would never think would say Tennessee deserves to get in over LSU told me earlier today that Tennessee deserves to get in over LSU. Okay, I won't reveal who that is because he's not in the chat right now, but and he's the biggest LSU fan I know. He said Tennessee deserves to get in over LSU. If JD5 wins the Natty, is he your Heisman candidate? Well, unfortunately, the Heisman Trophy is handed out way before the national championship. I do think this is true. If let's say Jayden does light it up in these final 3 weeks, he's got a shot to go to New York. Now, actually winning the Heisman, I do think he would have needed the Arkansas game, but I'll also say this, John Sibley. The guy that should be leading the Heisman Trophy right now should probably be Drake May. He's been phenomenal at UNC. I think he's been the best quarterback, especially if you factor in some of his runs. So yeah, I think CJ Stroud obviously is probably your leader right now. I don't think Bryce Young gets it. I don't think. I mean, the thing that sucks about Hendon Hooker is that is going to be a classic example of he'll get invited to New York. He'll get enough votes, but the Georgia game is just going to suck, right? But he's still got a shot. It just kind of sucks for them that this year on their schedule, they have no marquee games in November. And a lot of the times these awards are won in November, right? So he's not going to be in the SEC championship game. So yeah, I mean, sucks. Just how it works though. So yeah, I think it's going to come down to CJ Stroud and Drake May. I do. I do think Stetson Bennett still has a chance. Now, as someone who told a lot of people to bet Stetson Bennett for the Heisman Trophy at plus 12,500, as in if you were to place $100 bet, you would be winning $12,000, which is crazy. I kind of hope that because I feel as if some people actually did that. I wimped out and actually did it, but I do know someone that did bet it. Didn't get that level of odds, but yeah. Now, y'all do know that like radio shows, you could still do radio now, not be in the studio. It's what I do when I do radio. I have my own device here. It's very easy. Okay. But yeah. So Jayden does win out. And let's say he does have Alabama type of performances in these final 3 weeks. It's doable, but highly unlikely. Right. There have only been 2 sophomores win the Heisman Trophy, I believe, and they were both offensive players. Well, yeah, I mean, every one of them have been offensive players outside of, well, you guys know who that was. And Dominican Sue, I'm kidding. Sue should have won the Heisman that year. But still, since Charles Woodson. 2 sophomores, Tim Tebow, Bryce Young. And Lamar wasn't a sophomore. He was a junior, right? Johnny Manziel was a second-year player as a sophomore, so more of a redshirt freshman. That's the first I've heard of this. I actually feel like one of the coaches during a coaching search. Oh, that's the first I've heard of this. My agent has not been contacted. No, I'm not. I don't know why anyone's thinking Jay Hill's going to quit doing his show. Huh? I think people underestimate like how easy it is to do radio anywhere, right? And what's funny was like my last radio job, I told them that. I was like, hey, like a lot of stuff we do is kind of unnecessary. And yeah, we could just do our shows from anywhere. And I didn't like that. On my NFL show that we recorded earlier today, it won't come out till Thursday. You guys don't have a lot of strong takes. Sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. Like, I'll be the first to tell you, I was very skeptical of the Chris Olave draft pick, and boy, was I wrong. And I'm glad I was wrong about that. I thought he'd be fine. I didn't think he'd be the best rookie wide receiver, but he's clearly been the best. But I did say Justin Fields is going to be the best quarterback in that draft class. And it's kind of looking like that right now. And I'll tell you this. I wish we would have played Ohio State in 2019. That would have been so insane. Joe Burrow going up against Ohio State. They were better. They were a better team than Clemson. And I would have rather that simple because I think we would have beaten them. But Ohio State was ranked number 1 over us the entire year up until our Georgia beatdown. Perk wins the Heisman before we leave. Okay. Oh, that's true. Uncle Earl's mini golf mania, the rematch, Carter, J. Hill, Cliff. Man, that putt situation was very curmudgeon. Like it was not good. But I'm certainly down for a rematch. I am. The one thing that's kind of gotten me mad, so last time I was with Cliff's not in here. I feel like if you have a gaming console, so I don't play video games anymore. Like if you have a gaming console and you are a sports fan, it should be forced that every game system has FIFA. But Cliff had only the hockey game. That's it. Now, I'm lucky to have made a lot of close friends via this channel. Van is one of my best friends now. Okay. He plays Madden all day. Doesn't really Madden over FIFA? Madden over FIFA? Really? FIFA is clearly the best. There's no, I haven't played FIFA in years, but it was so much better than every sports video game ever made. Okay. But yes, I'm down for a putt rematch. All right. Everybody, welcome to the channel and our newest PHL patron, Cameron Cannon. Obviously, a super precious photo here. BK loves tight ends. Why don't we have a hot receiver for the blitzes? It's a really good question, right? Honestly, Cameron, I hear this all the time. Why don't we run quicker passing concepts? Well, we've struggled with quick game. We've struggled, throwing comeback routes. We struggled throwing quick stuff over the middle. So yeah, we have hit the flat route to Mason Taylor a lot this year. It was a little weird to see Mason not get any catches, really not get any targets this last week. So everyone, welcome Cameron to the channel, and welcome Cameron to the Patreon. I'm very lucky to get to know you, Cameron, over the next few weeks, few months, and I believe we are in our Discord already as phase _G. That's dope. Pierce says, unpopular opinion, we should tank the rest of the year and trade back with the Eagles to get our first round back. You think we should trade Chris Olave for a first right now? Are you insane? Freaking Chris Olave? Now, if we got the #1 overall pick and we could get Bryce Young, yeah, you should do that. But, man, I'm going to be honest with you, Pierce. I love me some Chris Olave. Like, he's good. Like, I've never been more wrong. I thought he was just going to be average. I really did. But gosh darn it, he's good. But BK loves tight ends. Why don't we have a hot receiver for the blitzes? But yeah, Cameron, I do think our quick game does need to get better. I do. But Derek, you are a Dynasty player, okay? You play Dynasty fantasy full time, okay? You're always going to trade players for first round picks, right? Especially knowing you stay away from receivers that stay until their senior year anyway. Aaron, I don't know what it is, but LSU has never really been able to do running back screens. One thing you could say about Les Miles' offenses, we'd run that little middle screen with Charles Scott. But I think running back screens are just tougher now because the defensive linemen are so good at retracing their steps and locating the ball now. So, yeah. All right, Skipper, we'll see you, man. Blessed up. First off, I like the way you did the blessed. So L3 blessed up. I like that. Now, I would trade Michael Thomas. Mans is washed up now. Okay. So what could the Saints get in return of Michael Thomas right now? Oh, yeah. I'm sure there are a lot of teams. I'm sure Brett Veach for the Chiefs right now is just licking his chops to take on the $20 million, whatever it is, cap hit for a receiver who's not played in 3 years. I mean, you could not get a 6th round pick back for Michael Thomas right now. So we might as well keep him. I say we ride it out. Year 4 is going to be the year that Michael Thomas comes back. Would a tight end screen be easier? I mean, maybe. I mean, once again, a lot of like screen game comes down to how you're coached up in that screen game. It also is very dependent on what the defenses are going to do versus you. Okay. This is very simple for the Saints. Trade all our bad players for all their good players. But look, nothing against Michael Thomas. All right, I still got Michael Thomas stuff. It's ugly. Like it's just ugly. Like it just. Now, I'm not saying like he's ugly or the Saints are ugly. It's just the whole situation's just hideous. And the one thing, and just to tie Jayden Daniels back into all of it, like the one thing I will say about Jayden, and this is honestly just the biggest benefit of having him as your quarterback, is I know he's going to be there. I know he's going to be healthy. I know he is going to be a good leader. I know he is going to be a good teammate. And me knowing those things are important, right? Like, it's amazing what happens to your team and how much you crumble when Drew Brees leaves, right? Now, James did all the right things, but he hadn't been healthy. If your quarterback can't stay healthy, and look, the situation's nasty. I know that interview in New Orleans Football was big, but it's nasty. It's nasty. Sliding the paper bag back on. Yeah, I mean, so look, I'll bring up someone that's taught me quite a bit about this. So Derek's always going to trade players for first, right? Because if you trade for picks, the good thing about draft picks is they never get hurt, right? It's rarely a depreciating asset, if you will. Okay. But the one thing Derek did teach me was like how important age is. And the Saints honestly got old really quick. And they were old, honestly, for a long time. And now it's just catching up to them. It's just an old roster. Like, I mean, honestly, how many players on that team right now are in the prime of their careers? Okay. And look, we can talk about the Saints coaching all we want, but how many players there are in the prime of their careers? Okay. You wouldn't get a lot. Well, actually, no, you would get a lot because teams are still doing this. Like you saw what the 49ers did for Christian McCaffrey. They paid up just for the guy that they already have to outperform him this last week. Okay. Um Now they wanted a first, I believe, in return, but I don't think anybody wants Kamara to go. I don't. But yeah. But if they could get a first, obviously they would need to do that, but they're not going to. Yes and no. Like, I think some of it, Josh, is like if your quarterback is such a good red zone weapon, use him. And Jayden is as good of a runner at the quarterback position we've honestly ever really seen. Like, it really is that good, his running ability. So yeah, that eats up a lot. Like, that's the thing. Like, if Jayden Daniels is your quarterback, you know, I bring this up a lot in the film studies. It was very evident versus Florida State, and it was evident against Arkansas. I get this question a lot. And I revealed on my Jayden Daniels deep dive earlier today. I revealed the number one question I get is, hey, what is Jayden Daniels going to come back for 2023? Is he going to come back? And, for me, I'm not worried about that right now. But the second question that I get a lot of is, why aren't we using Jack Bech more? We need to throw Malik the ball more. We need to get Jure more involved. But the truth here, Josh, is like, when people ask you why is this guy's stats down, it's that's who Jayden is, right? If he is a quarterback who doesn't want to throw the football into somewhat tight coverage and he decides to tuck and run a bunch, that is an opportunity that is potentially taken away from, a wide receiver to make a big play down the field. So it is very, very interesting. Let's go to Grand Super Chat here. Any must-get players from BK should lure away from Texas 4-8. Obviously, Jacoby Matthews is going to be the biggest name, right? We know he's close with a lot of the players on the team. We know he is close to Louisiana. We know he's playing a lot right now, too. I would like to have him back. I liked him a lot coming out. I really did. So, yeah, that's going to be, a name. Denver Harris was also heavily connected to LSU. He's got some LSU ties as well. And maybe a few of those defensive linemen. But, Grant, the absolute must-get player that LSU must get from Texas A&M is Max Johnson. Kidding. But I do think Jacoby Matthews is going to be the biggest, right? Unpopular opinion, if I'm a wide receiver recruit and I find out Jayden is coming back, I'm questioning my commitment. Well, Danny, I've been agreeing with you a bunch, but I'm going to disagree with you now. Okay? The first is, if you're a wide receiver commitment coming in now, you're not expecting really to play year one. It's going to be hard because LSU is returning so many wide receivers. So if you're a commitment and Jayden Daniels is coming back, it's not going to be your quarterback. But I do think you are more so referencing some of the other players on the team that will have a decision to make whether or not they want to come back. Honestly, Danny, it's going to come down to how much the players love playing at LSU, right? Jayden wins you a lot of games. You will get some targets. But something that we have seen, Danny, is players want to be in the best position for them to succeed, right? We've seen a lot of players leave winning teams or force themselves out of winning teams because they're not happy with their situation. pretty big example that's happening in the NFL right now. The Jets are winning games for the first time in forever, but Elijah Moore was pissed because he wasn't getting a lot of targets. So yeah, Danny, I do think playing at LSU, obviously it's a very, tantalizing thing, knowing that LSU has brought and has been wide receiver U. I don't think there's any question with that. So I disagree with this unpopular opinion, but you are right. It is an unpopular opinion, but you also are right that, if you are a wide receiver that plays with the quarterback that doesn't have a good big time throw percentage and doesn't throw a lot of big time throws, then, and you want those big time targets, you might think about going somewhere else. I would disagree with that, though. I would rather be on a winning team where LSU has the best brand in the world when it comes to wide receivers. And I had to play here. Let's go to Rob G. Rob G, I called you twice this weekend. Twice. And I didn't get a call back. I wanted to talk to you, but I know you're a busy man. Do we really want any of those 8 and 4s with their attitudes, no discipline, and locker room rat poison? So let's start with a very simple truth, okay? To Rob G's point. All right, so Texas A&M, there's obviously a lot of 5 stars there. There are some that have done some really questionable things off the field, okay? Not a Texas A&M beat guy. It is what it is. So there's been a lot of suspensions and so on and so on. For me, Brian Kelly has done a good job, getting players that really want to be here. But the bottom line is if Texas A&M was winning, those players wouldn't have acted the way they have acted off the field. Because a lot of these kids come from winning programs in high school. When you lose, especially when you go to a university like Texas A&M, especially if you bring in 5-star kids, all their 5-star buddies are going to Ohio State, Alabama, LSU, Georgia, and they're winning. So part of this super chat, Rob G, I'll address at the top is, well, LSU wins. We win. Those 2 years of downness are gone. We win, baby. If you're coming here, be ready to win. You got to do what's right. It'll get your act together really quickly. It is amazing how many former players tell me that. Hey, there was someone on the team that, would go off the straight and narrow. Every now and then, though, you will. But they would tell me, hey, if you win, everybody buys in. Now, of course, there's always going to be some people that have their issues off the field. But, the simple truth is this. Something else, Rob G, that happens when you go to a new school is, well, it's kind of your last chance, really. Now, of course, you can always transfer again, but the simple truth is this. The first time that you leave a school, it's viewed as a failure. You failed at that school. It didn't work out. It is amazing when the first little bit of adversity such as that gets you to that next level, right? But the third thing, and this honestly is a really good super chat here. The third thing I'll say, Rob, to this is, for me, oh, look, there's Johnny 5. Johnny 5, shoot me an email after this so I can make sure I have your right address because I want to make sure I'm sending this Will Campbell autograph to the right person, okay? Or to the right address because I do love these Will Campbell autos. Since Johnny's been rocking with me since I had 100 subs, I'm sending him this autograph Will Campbell photo. But yes, Rob G, I do think a character assessment is very important. Like, we have a lot of guys that really get after it. And Well, I do know people in that building that are there every day. It is amazing, like, how well everyone is. I can't say everyone, but a good portion of the team is doing the right thing. LJ Johnson. Interesting. Is a tank. How big is he? How big is LJ Johnson? I'm going to give you a little bit of hope here. Keyshawn isn't going to fall as much as people think he's going to fall. I'm telling you right now. Yes, Aaron, we will get him. Let's go to Rob's next super chat, but obviously Desert's going to have a choice to make. Florida is obviously a very tantalizing location for him, but we'll see. But Rob G, as far as like the character concerns, I wouldn't worry too much about that. Next thought, if JD returns, he might not beat out Walker Howard. He might not. Here's a hard thing about quarterback play. Okay. So I'm going to be honest. Like, Jaden's spring game wasn't great. Like, he was 3 for 9. He threw a dime to Brian Thomas. But, the ball he threw that was complete to Jure was low. And, his Arizona State film wasn't great at the back end of last year. Now, once I started doing more digging and I got to know JD a little bit better, I've never talked to him. I'd like to. But I got to know some people close to him. I knew a little bit more about, the tragedies that surrounded him last year. And he's gotten better. He's gotten better. Now, he's had some bad games. Obviously, I've watched every snap JD's played multiple times over this year. There are some concerns, right? Like, can Walker Howard beat him out going into this next year? We don't know. The fit would be skewed, maybe, right? So, like, Colin Hurley, I think, is really, really good. Lots of growing. He's going to be one of the youngest college football players ever. I do think he's really, really, really good. I think Ricky Collins is a really good player, too. So, neither one of those guys are going to play at LSU while Jayden is still around. So you do worry about Walker and Nuss. That's obviously the two quarterbacks we focus on here. Okay? But the one thing that's interesting about Jayden Daniels, that it goes back to what we said earlier, is there is something to be said about a floor. And Jayden gives every team he plays for a really high floor. You don't have a good offensive line, he can go out the game for you with his legs. Okay? You don't have the absolute best playbook, okay, you can go find and he can make some things happen. Oh, we have a team that turns the football over a lot, put Jayden at quarterback, guess what? You're not going to turn the football over, which we haven't really at all this year. There's something to be said about a floor. And there's also something to be said about Walker Howard's ceiling, okay? So what do we know about Walker Howard? Elite feel for the pocket, right? His first year starting was one of the best high school seasons we've ever seen, and it was a Rona year, okay? This last year was one of the best, or his last year of high school was one of the best high school football seasons I've ever seen of any Louisiana high school football player at any position. It was really that good. Knowing what he was going through, the injury, coming back from the injury, it was really good, right? Arm talent is really, really good. It's not special, but it's really, really, really good. Okay. I also think something else about Walker Howard I think is really good is that he does have some running to his game. He's a little bit of a dual threat. Now, I think he is, I don't know if he is like a Burrow level runner, but he's a really good runner. Okay. And something else that I like about Walker is he's actually pretty good out of empty sets, right? So there's a lot to like. But is he ready next year? We'll see. The hard thing about it, Rob, is there's no way you could tell via practice. And that's kind of the scary thing about it. Okay. Let's go to Carson here. Oberon, thank you for the Twitter mention. Appreciate that. Let's go to Carson. Carson, thank you so much for your generous super chat here. We'll keep it moving. Got some people creeping in. It's always weird when that happens. About 35 minutes ago, I'm ready to sign off. You guys just keep me going, man. Let's go. You just touched on this, I know, but anyways, I want JD to return, but I'm scared Malik and BTJ will transfer. Okay. Let's touch on this for a little bit. Okay. I'd feel a little bit different about this, Carson, if LSU had not developed a brand or a reputation. Okay. Now, I think we underestimate the power of a brand, especially with younger people, right? Like, I think about my brand a lot. I work in media, and you guys know every time you come to this channel, I'm going to be talking about LSU football, and I'm going to have strong opinions about it. I'm going to love this team. I'm getting to go to Atlanta. It's crazy. But I've developed a brand that way, right? So people know when they click, on a video that it's going to be some form of deep LSU analysis, right? It may not be my best video, it may not be the deepest research video, it might be a shorter video, it might be an hour-long film study, it might be a live stream such as this, but you know what you're getting, right? NFL teams like that. And NFL teams, they'll spend thousands and millions of dollars on scouting. But a lot of NFL teams like to draft players from winning programs, and they like to draft players that other great players from that school come from, right? If I'm looking from a tight end, I'm in the 4th round, and there's a tight end from Iowa who has a decent grade, I'm going to take a chance, right? Hawkinson, Kittle. If there's a wide receiver that's from Louisiana and they played for LSU, I don't need to look at their numbers. I'm going to take a chance. Hell, James Wright got drafted. James Wright. A lot of you probably don't know who that is. James Wright got drafted with LSU. BTJ and Malik are guaranteed to start next year. They don't care what their numbers look like. Malik was taking a photo this offseason with Odell Beckham Jr. You think Malik is at that party if he went to Michigan State? You think Malik is wherever this, meetup happened? Do you think he's there if he went to Utah? I might have better numbers. Utah's got Cameron Rising as one of the best quarterbacks in the sport. If you play wide receiver at LSU and you start, that's hard enough in and of itself. Here's a good example of this, I'd say Carson. The best wide receiver from that class, Okay. So in that class, we had Malik Neighbors, had Jack Besh, Brian Thomas Jr., and Chris Hilton, all from that 2021 class. But what if I told you there's a wide receiver by the name of Keon Coleman that went to Michigan State? He's from South Louisiana. He's from Opelousas. That's an hour away from Baton Rouge. He statistically has been better than all of them. He went to Michigan State. Michigan State isn't this, high-powered spread offense. You don't look at Mel Tucker, Michigan State, and think, oh, they got a high-powered passing attack. A lot of you probably the first time tonight are just learning who Keon Coleman is. Okay. If you play wide receiver at LSU, you have a chance. Okay. Malik and BTJ aren't going anywhere. If you play wide receiver at LSU, you've got a chance. Okay. Keyshawn Boutte. I'm telling you, you don't have to worry about that. Destin Payson Hill. Florida State fans are still asking me about him. I have no idea. I don't know what the deal is there. But Keon Coleman can play. Heck, he's on Michigan State's basketball roster. I don't know if he is this year, but do you know how hard it is to make that roster? I mean, Michigan State's a program. But Keon Coleman can play. He's really freaking good at football. But look, you never know. Like also the NFL is just so random. Like, let me ask you this, and I know like this, he had a big off the field issue, but does anybody remember Tyreek Hill for Oklahoma State? Does anybody remember Antonio Brown for Central Michigan? I mean, yeah, like we remember who Devonta Smith was and Jamar Chase was at their schools, but they played in a bunch of high profile games, right? How many of you tuned in for Eastern Washington games on their red turf to see Cooper Kupp play? It's a lot of it's just random, honestly. But one brand that does matter at the wide receiver position is LSU. So I love JoJo Earl. I loved him, Carson. And he's average. He's very average. And he's getting an opportunity to play. Big blessing there. And look, I'll be the first. You guys know I'm honest. I will miss on an evaluation. I thought JoJo Earl was going to be the real deal. And he's had some moments for Alabama. I mean, he's decent. But I'm so glad he decommitted, because when he decommitted, we're able to get Malik. And Malik has clearly been the better player. So, yeah, I mean, you win some, you lose some. Out of all the remaining recruits, who are you most hopeful to steal away? Obviously, of the uncommitted guys, everybody was going to want Nicholas Harbor. That would obviously be pretty fun. I'll say this, Aaron, and I'm not just saying this just to say it. it's going to be hard for me to have a grade or a what's up, James? Good to see you. Or have a feel for any player the same way that I just loved Harold Perkins. I just loved him so much coming out. Like, his high school tape is just a movie. All the testing that he did, the interviews, the star power. I just thought he was really special. Like, I really, really, really did. And I haven't really seen somebody in this cycle to that level, right? Like, I just haven't. I think Nicholas Harbor's really good. I think I've shared how I know DJ Hicks. I don't know him, but his dad is a friend of mine. He obviously is going to Texas A&M. I think he's really good. 2023 quarterback class is obviously really good with Dante Moore and those guys. But there's not a player that, like, I just am just totally, like, just blown away with in 2023. Now, that's not me saying that I don't think any of them is like that. But, you know, if you go back and look at all my live streams, even when Harold Perkins committed to Texas A&M, I said repeatedly he was my number one player in 2022 at any position. And I mean, dude, I was so happy. I remember calling Blake when Harold Perkins committed to LSU. I was like, they're so freaking happy this happened. And, you know, it truly transcendent players are few and far between. I'll tell you this, like, I do think Sheldon Sampson's going to be really good and he's going to play year one. But, you know, we'll see. We'll see. When we get all their senior tapes and you're able to see all of it, everything's all laid out. It's crazy. But yeah, it's like stuff like this. So that was one thing that honestly just really stood out to me about Harold Perkins. But what was really interesting was when I started looking, when I saw him for the first time, the thing that really stood out is like how slow things seemed to move for him, right? It was, he didn't ever really get knocked off his spot, if you will. His body just remained still when he was, you know, going up against a tackle. But honestly, just his final year in high school, he only had 35 tackles. He played so much running back, but he was so dominant at running back in like this veer option system where, you know, it's just like, it was just so crazy. Like, I felt like I was watching like a 5-star running back. I mean, it was truly, I remember watching him for the first time. My jaw was legit to the floor. I was like, this guy, the fact that we were even in the running is crazy. But, you know, as far as like this cycle is concerned, you know, obviously, I think most people are going to say Nicholas Harbor is going to be the Harold Perkins of 2023 because they're very similar, right? They're 5-star talents with generational athleticism, and you don't know where his best position actually is. But yeah, it's crazy. But I'm going to be honest, like, I've never been more nervous. And part of why I was so nervous was, so when he committed to Texas A&M, I was like so sad. I was like, God, they got him another one. And I remember, you know, getting on a phone call with somebody that knew about his recruitment, and they said, we've watched your channel. We're just going to let you know it's not over. So I was like, okay, that's cool. And I was just like, please, 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 please. And then, he had that final visit and they were in Tiger Stadium and it was crazy. Like it was him, it was Terrence Welch, Jacoby Matthews. Oh man. I was like, God, please let this happen. Please. Please, 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 please. So that's what made me really nervous. I was like, now I'm hearing that this could still be a thing. And then there was a lot of people sending me the interviews that he was doing at the time. And it was like, Perk said something about in like a high school interview. And I was like, I don't care about that. Just get this guy to Baton Rouge, please. And man, you could make a case we don't beat Auburn. You could make a strong case we don't beat Mississippi State. Make a case we don't beat Ole Miss. Make a case we don't beat Alabama. And we definitely don't beat Arkansas if Harold Perkins wasn't on our team. And to have that kind of player on defense is rare. Like, it is rare that a defensive player moves the needle as much as that guy has done. And, man, I'm just lucky he's got the LSU tattoo. It's crazy. Oh, man. You're witnessing something crazy, man. It's one of those things. You never know. You never, ever know. The LSU tat, baby. But yeah, we're spoiled. Spoiled to have Tyrann Mathieu and Harold Perkins and Evan White. And hey, one thing we haven't talked about is that Justin Jefferson catch, but no one's talking about Patrick Peterson. 2 interceptions in that Bills game. Man, like, I don't think PP7 has slept on. I think everybody and that says they love LSU football knows who Patrick Peterson is. But honestly, like, his 3 years of LSU was so freaking dominant. Like, we kind of on a little bit, for being honest. James, I'd go with you. I am going to Atlanta, so I won't be able to. I would love to go. But I know you live in Houston, so yeah, man. It kind of sucks. So I think a lot of LSU fans aren't going to go because they're just going to Houston already. PP7 is my favorite Tiger of all time. I mean, he's up there. I mean, he's gotta be in everybody's top 5 of the modern era, right? Like, especially if you take the 2019 season altogether out. Let's go, Aaron. $5 super chat challenge. I like it. Let's go, baby. Number 1 overall pick. Man, I think it's just going to come down to like that quarterback class. I don't know what like the 2025 quarterback class is going to look like. So that's going to be like, that's like Walker Howard in them, right? Aaron with the $5, Carson with the $5. I like it. I like this. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Let's go. All right, Aaron and Carson, you get to pick the next topic. Let me know. Yeah, Tasmanian Devil. That's what LSU is calling him. And man, he's good, man. But he's 2024, though, Drake May. Oh, the 2025. I got it. So the 2025 draft, right? Because this next draft will be, no, it'll be 2024. Drake May will go 1.1 in 2024. right? Because he's not a true freshman this year. He's a year 2 player, right? Let me know. I think that's right. Josh, thank you. I appreciate it, man. I love it. Well, would have been perfect if Josh would have gone, if it would have gone $5, $4.99, and $4.98. Bobby Boucher. Ha, 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 ha. I love the way you spelled it. Oh, yeah, $4 in the Cash App? Let's go. I love how on Josh, I love like on like Cash App, like I love how like Josh Allen is like the spokesman for Cash App now. And I was like, wait, multimillionaires use Cash App? That's crazy. Huh? 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 Cash App should sponsor somebody like me who heavily relies on Cash Apps. Also, Josh, next time you could just Cash App me directly at Carter the Power. Do you think Perk could return punts? Dude, so athletic feels weird for a linebacker to be there. The mistake you're making, though, Josh, is you're calling him a linebacker. It's not a linebacker. He's Perk. I do think they're going to start calling that position the Perk. I think it's going to come with a new name. I'll also say this, Josh. I think one thing that kind of is interesting about the Harold Perkins thing is like Drew Sanders for Arkansas has had a phenomenal year, and nobody's talking about it anymore because his team sucks. And Perk is Perkin right now, and he's better than Drew Sanders. But I do think there's going to come a time and a place where, like next year, if he's making a run for the Heisman, they're going to let him get some touches. Right? Like you're doing him a disservice if you don't actually let him, like if you don't actually let him get some punt returns or some touches just in some shape, form, or fashion. That's if he's making a Heisman run. Hey, look, I still got a bunch of Florida State fans that watch my channel, including Pensacola Packbuster and DJ Ferg. So I got blowback on this. So let's say we play Georgia and we get beat. Okay. We'll probably be in the Sugar Bowl and play like Kansas State, right? I would like a rematch versus Florida State this year. But did you know we play them the first game in Orlando? Even better. So they beat us. We beat them in the bowl game. And then the rubber match would be in Orlando. I'd love that. I'd love to play Florida State again. You kidding me? Florida State's a national brand. That'd be a fun bowl game to get a rematch. I saw that, Carson, the player that said, we're going to urinate in your cereal. But I do think chicken broth should be on every sideline, right? This was actually discussed in our Discord, by the way. Once again, patreon.com/LSU Football. Get to be in the private chat. Get to chat with me whenever you want. But that was very bizarre. We want to urinate in your cereal. I'll tell you, Florida State is a really good team. They had a bad stretch, but they have been the most dominant team the last 2 weeks. But they are blowing the brakes off of teams right now. So y'all are stuck with Norvell. Norvell is a good play caller. But let's be honest, Jordan Travis is still underrated. Like, it's kind of strange. Like, Jordan Travis is going to be one of these, like, ridiculously good college quarterbacks that will be a career backup in the NFL. Oh, the Sugar Bowl is at 11 a.m.? What? See, here's a fun fact about me. I've been to 15 Sugar Bowls. I've been to a lot of them. I've been to a lot of them that honestly weren't really that interesting, like Florida, Louisville. I've been to so many of them. My dad and I would go every year. Our neighbor had like tickets every year, and he didn't really like football. So we went a bunch, obviously. And I've gone when it's like the college football semis and all of that. And it is such a cool bowl game, right? It's so cool to have a bowl game like in New Orleans. And they also had the New Orleans Bowl that UL used to go to every year. So yeah, that does suck. But then again, like it kind of doesn't, because if you go to New Orleans, I think I'd kind of like an 11 a.m. game just to get that out of the way so I can go do something after. I mean, I'll say this as well. Like, most bowl games are the same. The only bowl game that is uniquely different is the Rose Bowl, right? But most bowl games are the same. So I do think the Rose Bowl is somewhere that everybody should go before. It should be a college football bucket list. But be prepared if you go, because the parade is separate from the bowl game. You would need a ticket for the parade, which is epic. and it is different. The bowl game and the parade and the bowl game are two completely different things. All right, so in the next 5 minutes, I'll answer as many questions as I possibly can. We still got some $5 super chats flowing in, so it's good. If you keep them going, we'll keep it going. TJ's poll question. B wins out. Wait, are my dogs barking? My one dog, I don't think's barking. Always a good sign of A gets more than DNF. It's true. How long do we have him at a house? That's a good question. So Blake asked me that last night. He's going to get some head coach love this offseason. Here's my thing if I'm Matt House. Okay. Oh, my feet? Are my feet moving? Am I moving my feet? I'll answer this so, Carson. Two things. The first is it would be different if Matt House was an offensive coordinator. He's not. I do think there's going to be a premium on offensive coaches. Number two, if I'm Matt House, and I'm just saying this objectively, okay? Why would I leave a job where I'm getting a 7-figure salary? Okay. A job where I know I'm good. I know for sure next year I'm going to have Harold Perkins and Mason Smith on my defense. Obviously, you got to rebuild the secondary, which is going to suck, and it's going to be hard for us to find another Baskerville. But you still get Harold Perkins, right? A potential national championship level roster next year. Why would you leave that? To go be a head coach in the Sun Belt? The only thing he's leaving for, Carson, is an NFL job. That's it. If he gets an NFL DC job, he's gone. He's gone. But what are they going to pay him? That is what he is getting at LSU right now. It's going to take a lot. Derek, I wish. I'd have a few more Joe Burrow PSA 10s to buy a few more. I mean, more than 0. But the truth is, Carson, I just have a tough time believing he is gung-ho to go somewhere. He's 44 years old. Okay. He's got a great head coach and he's offensive minded. So I have autonomy over my defense. All the other coaches on my defense are also very young and hungry. Why would he leave that? I just have a tough time believing he leaves. I really do. I really, really, really do. I also have a tough time believing, Carson, that there is another Division I head coaching job that is better than being the defensive coordinator at LSU. So, I just have a tough time believing that. So there you go. My coolest piece of memorabilia. So it's going to sound stupid, but it's honestly this. Like this is the first time that a high-level professional athlete has personally signed something to me. So honestly, it's this. There's a lot of stuff that my dad's given me that's very sentimental and value. This card right here was the gold one here of Tyrann Mathieu, was the last to complete a set that I was going after. That was pretty cool. But let's see. This is actually it right here, Josh. My Derek Jeter Game 1 wristband. I got this over 10 years ago at the National Collectors Convention. But yeah, so Pizzicola obviously has a bigger and better collection than me. Yeah, Rick, I'll be there, man. But yeah. Plus something else if you're Matt House, and I know this isn't that big of a deal when it comes to deciding where you're going to go next, but there's a lot of teams losing their quarterback next year. Florida's losing their quarterback. Alabama's losing their quarterback. Mississippi State, Will Rogers, he has a decision to make. Obviously, KJ Jefferson has got a decision to make. You're telling me I get to come back with Harold Perkins. Yeah, I lose a lot. I got to rebuild my secondary. But kids will transfer in. I got to rebuild my secondary. But at the same time, I mean, the quarterback section in the SEC might not be all that great. Hooker gone, but he's not on our schedule. But he is gone. You're all right about that. I'm going to need some tailgate recommendations. Yeah, it's the kind of thing about it, Rick. When these games are played at these like big national NFL types of sites, it's not really tailgatey, if you will. I think some guys stay. Rogers, Travis. Yeah, I could see that. Matt House is waiting on BK to finish his contract and retire. So Matt House at that time would be 55 years old, so that one makes sense. Then Tyrann comes in to take over the DC position, and House takes over the head coach job. Interesting. Matt Toronto, what's good, man? Good to see you. Mike Jones will be back. Perkins retires from the NFL and becomes a pass rush specialist coach. Man, he's going to have so much money. He's not even going to ever think about coaching, right? Man, I hope Anthony Richardson goes. He has got some special traits, man. If it ever gets put together, watch out. That is a quarterback you put in the lab right there. Elite arm strength, elite mobility. Man, if it ever fully comes together, it is going to be in freaking insane. And honestly, if it doesn't, Anthony Richardson is going to be a beast, slot receiver, tight end kind of guy. Like, he is special as a football player in terms of just pure raw running ability, arm strength, football instincts. I mean, if it ever fully comes together, he is going to be nuts. Okay, so I get this question a lot about Keyshawn's numbers. They don't matter. They don't. For this reason. Is he going to slide down some boards? Maybe. Maybe Jalen Hyatt jumps him. Maybe. But the one stat rugger that a lot of Dynasty fantasy people look at, and I think Derek is still in here, but one thing that colleges or NFL teams look for is pure athleticism. Keyshawn, of course, he had the ankle injury. Yes, it doesn't look like he has the same elite burst that he had as a true freshman. But the Ole Miss game did a lot for him. Now, that may not sound like a lot. We were playing an Ole Miss team that, was already bowl eligible for that weird 2020 year. And for those that remember, that game was played the same day as the SEC championship game. And that week was the early signing period. So, no one really prepared for that game. But he still broke out and dominated the game. So one thing that a lot of teams look for is how early did you break out? It's a stat called breakout age. And the 3 games that Terrace Marshall wasn't in the lineup and Keyshawn played the role of the alpha receiver. There's no Eric Gilbert. There's no Terrace Marshall. He was a guy. He was freaking incredible. One game with TJ Finley, the other 2 with Max Johnson. He was dominant. That's what NFL teams look for. Because what that tells them is, look, at your absolute youngest in a not productive environment, you dominated. And that has NFL teams salivating, right? And 2020, when he was healthy, he was the best receiver in college football in 2021. He was the best. All right. He would have walked away with the Blitnikoff last year if he didn't get hurt. Walked away with. And that's not that against Jordan Addison or anybody really. Or Jameis Williams, but he was the best. So this year it hasn't been the absolute best. So what? He is going to get drafted really high. Okay. So here's Derek, right? So not to brag on Derek, but he does look at this stuff a lot. Like, if you play as much fantasy dynasty stuff as he does, this is something that, I would defer to him on as far as the NFL draft is concerned. I think it'd be stupid to pass on him in the first round. Does he look a little slower? Yes. Was there a lot of this off-field stuff? Is he buying back in? That's been documented, and even he's admitted to that. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. If you dominate the way that he dominated in year one, I don't give a rip if I don't give a rip if things got rough. Okay? Anytime there's a coaching transition and you're the best player on the team, it could get bumpy. BTJ was under concussion protocol. Okay? Hey, man, Jared Verse is a beast, man. Next Auburn head coach, Cadillac. I'm not going to lie. Like, so Cadillac was one of the Sugar Bowls I went to. When Auburn, who did Auburn play? I was younger at the time when I went to that game. I went to that Sugar Bowl, and it was so much fun, and I'm always going to be a Cadillac fan. Cadillac, Ronnie Brown, Jason Campbell as their quarterback. That was a filthy good team, right? Bet you they wish they had the playoff then. But I'm always going to cheer for Cadillac because I freaking loved him. Well, Carter, you saying you're a fan of him because while he was at Auburn? Yeah, because I was young and I got to see him play in person. You know, I want Cadillac to get the job. I don't think that's what they're going to do, though. Right? I don't think Lane is going to Auburn. Right? Feels a little too much in the news right now. All right, to Rugger's second point here. It's ball placement. Jaden's ball placement hasn't been great. Okay. So I'm going to give you a few examples here. Okay, Rugger. And you can go look these up. I've done a film study of almost every offensive play this year. Okay. First drive versus Tennessee. Keyshawn might have scored if the slant was thrown properly. Dead serious. Go back and look at the play. If you throw the slant where it needed to be, he still should have caught it, but if you throw it to where it needed to be, he's getting no less than 20 yards of yak. Okay. Florida game. First down of the game, 3rd and 8. He was open at the snap. Jaden didn't throw it, but he had all day to throw. Keyshawn actually cleared another window. Still had to wait on the ball. Then after catching it, he split 2 Florida defenders and gained an extra 5 to 7 yards. Okay? Now, should Keyshawn have played better in some spots this year? Yeah, the Florida State game was a disaster for him. Disaster. His worst game by far. Nothing comes close. But ball placement matters. So, yeah, he needs to catch the ball versus Tennessee. Yeah. But those slants are thrown, should lead the receiver. Once again, that's not me saying Jaden's a bad quarterback, but, it's just – it's true. Everyone, welcome JAYDEN Daniels to the channel. The Hooper. Prospects for the secondary. Good question. So obviously you re-recruit your roster now, right? You say, look, what do we have now that we could for sure bring back? And honestly, I think you could have a scenario where everybody's gone. Joe Fouché for sure gone. Jay Ward's probably gone. Greg Brooks is probably gone. Garner's definitely gone. I think he's going to get a Senior Bowl invite, even though he's only a year 3 player. Kobe Richardson's gone. Jarek Bernard Converse is gone. So that leaves you with Sage Ryan as one of the few that have experience. Major Burns will probably come back. So, Devon, the first thing now in the world of college football is you got to re-recruit your own roster. Then you got to go look at the portal. So obviously, Jacoby Matthews is going to be the most talked about player. Yeah, it's a decision. Then you look at your young players. What about LaTerrence Welch? We'll see. Demarius McGee, we'll see. What about Ray Darius Jones, academically suspended this entire year? Can he play? Now, LSU currently has a high amount of defensive backs committed. Not really much of an insider type, especially when it comes to recruiting. Not all of them are going to sign to LSU. I'll just put it like that. Hope I'm wrong about that. But there's a lot of smoke on certain players. I don't think all of them are going to sign, especially if Toviano and Ricks commit. Okay. But we'll see. So there you go. Bon, hopefully I answered your question. I hope you come back to more live streams. So there you go. It's crazy. All right, guys. As you can see, I'm wearing down. I'm going to call it a night. Got to book my trip to Atlanta where the players play. All right. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Don't forget, if you want more of me, I just dropped a long film study. By long, I mean it's 14 minutes on JAYDEN Daniels from earlier today. Also, if you can do me a favor, if you're new, please go subscribe to Power Hour SEC. See if we got any new subs. Nope, no new subs. It's all good. And I'll be talking with everybody in the Discord. Okay, it is Power Hour LSU. Boom. And tonight, okay, here we go. James got a super chat in, so we're going to hang out for a little bit. What's up with Reese Davis, HE double hell bent on no way LSU can leapfrog Tennessee even if they win the SEC championship? I get it. And James, look, let me put it this way. If we were Tennessee and they were LSU, wouldn't we feel some type of way if we went to Rocky Top, beat them 40-13, and our only loss on the season was a road game versus Georgia, the number one overall team? By the way, we did not get blown out by them. It wasn't necessarily the most competitive game, but we didn't get, our socks beat down. And in every other game outside of the Alabama game and a road test versus Pitt in week 2, we've taken it to every team we've played. Now, the Florida game was competitive, and Florida made it interesting at the end. But I do disagree with Reese saying, look, LSU, if they beat Georgia at a neutral site, they should get in. Something else, James, that's very interesting about LSU. And if Brian Kelly was to be interviewed over the next couple of weeks, okay, right after the Georgia game ends, okay, I don't believe the playoff committee is as subjective as we think they are. I think they're a little bit more objective. But I believe, James, if I were Brian Kelly, the one thing I don't know. I missed the second half because I was going to LSU Bama. So I've only seen the highlights. I haven't sat down and watched every snap. But Tennessee missed some shots in that game. They did. Now, I'll go back to what I was going to say about Brian Kelly. Framing matters. Okay. And if I'm Brian Kelly, I would go to the committee and say, look, it is clear we are not the same team that we were to start the year. And I would say, look, I didn't play true freshman to start the year the way I should have. We lost one game without our star offensive tackle, Emory Jones, and Harold Perkins wasn't playing. Now, that was obviously Brian Kelly's decision. And against Tennessee, you can make the same case. Hey, we didn't have our starting left tackle. We lost him 48 hours before the game began. I would hammer that point home 1,000 times over. We are not the same team we were then. But hasn't that always been the case in SEC championship games, right? He's on every single platform. I love it. Well, Jay, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. We'll hang out for a little bit longer. Georgia would basically be in the same position as 2019 LSU. Yeah, I mean, that's where they are, right? It's just seeding would change. So once again, I'll pull up the once again, if you're LSU, you not only want Florida State to keep winning, you want them to keep blowing the brakes off of people. Okay. But quite simply, if the games don't matter, then don't play them. Not saying I don't think we'll win or not, but this winning your conference has to matter more. So the same logic is true, Pierce, the other way, right? Because a big reason why LSU wouldn't get in over Tennessee isn't just the fact that Tennessee went to LSU. Tennessee could also say, look, they lost to Florida State, right? And ultimately, the college football playoff, like one thing I think people get wrong about college football is they think the most important thing to do is win games. And that is not true. The key to getting into the college football playoff is avoiding losses. And those two things sound like they're the same thing, but they're not, right? So let's take someone like Oregon. Oregon losing a tough game versus Washington because their QB got hurt. And it wasn't just that. It could have gone either way. But Oregon scheduling Georgia to start the year. This is 2011 Oregon all over again. The only game you lost was to the most dominant undefeated team in the SEC in week 1. So, it's tough, right? But I am winding down. I really do need to go use the bathroom really bad. I know, TMI. But when you do, this is our longest live chat we've done in quite some time. So I probably should announce this a little bit earlier. But I think on Thursday, we're going to try 6 p.m. Central live stream just to test it out. Okay. So once again, next Thursday, I think we're going to try 6 p.m. Central. Just be on the lookout for that. And if for some reason we have it at 8 anyway, guess what? You'll just be 2 hours early. Okay. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom. And tonight, we're getting some Whataburger. I've already had Whataburger. Let's go. Let's go.